How's it going, everybody? I am Kyle from Fantasy Forge Studios, and we are back with our third of four fellowship phases for our Company of Adventures in Middle-earth. They just finished their second adventure, and everybody is splitting up during this time of Yule, this Yule phase, the celebration of the turn of the year in Middle-earth, to go do the respective things that they need to do. But we are doing Faenor's adventure today, and so we are joined by Nick for that. And without further ado, let me go ahead and just have Faenor introduce yourself.
Hey guys, it's been a while since I've been around. So I was sick the last few weeks, so I couldn't even be lurking in chat. But I'm Faenor, one of our slayers from the Mirkwoods. I'm a Mirkwood elf, and I'm currently going to be trying to make my way over to the Breelands after our last adventure, help out our Hobbit friends, and see where things go from there.
Absolutely, and very excited to see. We've already seen thus far. If you haven't checked out the videos yet up on our YouTube page, we've already done Theodric's Yule phase and also Jess's last week's adventure phase, where Theodric, he made his way up to the Vales of Gundabad to try to find out more about his past. And we also had Jess, who made her way to the settlements of the Woodmen, finding her way at Tyrant's Hill for the conclusion of hers there. But yes, we will start making our way westward towards kind of the region of Eriador for today's adventure, as Valineth and Faenor together make their trip through the high pass to Imladris and eventually onward towards Bree. But without further ado, a little bit of recap about everything that has happened. For those who don't know, we are, 44 episodes into this thing, and a lot has happened. This group of adventurers, Faenor being in the party since, I think, you were the very first one. Session, one was Faenor's, session, I think.
No, I think I was actually the last one of us to do
Were
our
you?
session
Been a while.
zeros. Yes, because we had
44
Theodrix,
weeks
and then
ago.
we had yeah, oh yeah, whoa. We had Theodric getting killed in his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
We had Jess with not Jess, Jalen with the rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and we had Valineth.
Oh yeah,
What are you doing?
exploring the
Yeah,
underground, or the kind of the
mm,
swamplands of
yeah,
Dale. So yeah,
mm.
that's true.
And
But very excited to be able to finally give Faenor an episode completely to himself again. But again, if you haven't
yeah,
seen any of those, go watch them. It's a lot of hours of wonderful content, so you can catch up on everything that is happening here, so you're not completely
mm,
confused. But a little brief recap: this group of adventurers, they all met in the city of Dale at the 5-year celebration of the Battle of the Five Armies, and they competed in a melee together. They got together and did their thing. And decided, let's go adventure and start to answer some of these questions together. They made their way over to Esgaroth and Lake Town, that whole area, where they eventually became caravan guards for these two people, Baldur and Belgo. To which, as caravan guards, they made their way through Mirkwood and all the way to the Easterly Inn. But on that journey, one of their companions, Jalen, unfortunately died to the hands of the wayward elves and the leader of them, Maeglin. And
yeah. I'm
they,
glad he's dead.
yeah,
Ugh.
fought a
Sorry, I
giant
just had to.
spider.
Ugh, yeah, just
all,
had to
all
get that
kinds of
in there.
things. Absolutely, yeah. He was a jerk, to say the least. um, but yeah, they ended up losing her on halfway through their trip through the Mirkwood, and with kind of a fortunate turn of events, kind of. Giant spider, Savage Taller the Hunter came in, and one of the Biggins, sons of Shelob, spiders came in and attacked the Wayward Elf Company, to which Faenor and valiantly stood back and waited for his friend Cranthiel, who was part of these Wayward Elves, and whatever Wayward Elves were able to escape, essentially setting that part of the forest on fire, scaring away Savage Towler after he had completely consumed, in Jack Sparrow-like fashion, Maeglin. They fled. They left Mirkwood and eventually came to the Easterly Inn, where they met their new companion Jess, but also where, with the help of Valineth, Faenor sent them on their way towards Imladris, the Wayward Elves, Caranthiel, and the ones that he became close to, the survivors to Imladris, to find a little bit of safety, as they didn't really have a place where they belonged, as they were wayward from the kingdom of the Woodland Realm. And so he sent them that way, and also during that, they decided to make their way down to the settlements of the Woodmen, to which they sat in on the Folkmoot of Roskabel, and a bunch of things happened. One of the big ones, as we noted from last week, is Mogdred, who is the son of Ingolmer, who is the leader of kind of the de facto leader of the Woodmen. His son has kind of come to the forefront, but he is kind of a jerk. And after much deliberation and kind of perceiving the kind of person he is, the Woodmen, with some resistance, let Mogdred and Tyrant's Hill, the settlement which he leads, join as part of the just overall basically Woodman people. And with that being said, they went off on another adventure, summoned by the hobbits of Easterly Inn, all the way up the Anduin towards the High Pass to go track down the caravan of Dindy Brandybuck and company, which they did end up eventually finding them after fighting ghosts, perhaps traveling back on time, doing all kinds of crazy shenanigans. They eventually found them, fought off the orc and goblin onslaught that was attacking them, snuck into the goblin caves, freed Dindy, and made their way back to the Easterly Inn, where they not only mourned over the death of one of the Breeland boys that are part of the caravan, Andy, but they and celebrated kind of his life, but started the company, decided to go their separate ways, planning to meet again back at the Easterly Inn in the spring. And with that being the case, the first two to be able to leave were Faenor and Valineth. But Faenor, you said that you wanted to do a couple of things before you left. Why don't you go ahead and explain that to everybody, what's going on, so we know exactly what's happening with that. And then we're going to go ahead and roll your new HP as you have leveled up to level 4.
Yes. Um, yeah. More or less, what Faenor is doing is he is trying to write some letters and send some different communications back towards where the Woodmen are, into the Woodmen settlements, so that in the future there can be more heavily guarded caravans that are making their ways through this pass. Considering that last little stint out that way resulted in a bunch of orcs and goblins just descending on us and killing some of the Bjornings and trying to make off with the hobbits. So yeah, really trying to use some of those connections that he's gained in our last adventure phase to help his friends keep them a bit safer and keep the lands of Middle Earth a little bit clearer of the shadow.
And one of these things that with this letter that you sent off, you leave it in the trusting hands of Jess, as Jess goes to deliver it to essentially Woodman Hall, and she does. We didn't touch anything on that in the last session last week, but we'll just say, for the sake of story, she did just that. As she went to go there and make her appearance in a Woodman Hall, she did. And so, in the coming spring months, if the caravan should return back to the Easterly Inn, they will have a fresh guard of everything that Faenor and company had learned upon the rescue of basically what's going on, and during his trek towards Imladris, and eventually to Bree and the Shire. Any important information that he picks up along the way, he will go ahead and use that as help for the Easterly Inn and the caravan travelers. That being said, but with it is a early bright morning, about mid-September, and the caravan has set off to send the corpse of Andy, along with Tom, Bill, Igwar, not Dindy, actually. So Dindy is staying back at the Easterly Inn for the time being. But Valineth and Faenor have started making their way westward towards Imladris and the Hidden Valley there. let's go ahead and roll those dice. And so for Faenor, he is a slayer, so that's like the barbarian of Adventures in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And what that means is he gets a D12 for his hit point increase plus his con modifier, whatever that is. And so go ahead. I'm gonna have you roll that there.
D12. Yep.
D12, and before you tell me the answer, if anybody has inspiration to give, or if you have inspiration, I will allow you to re-roll that and take the higher if you want to do so.
I do not have inspiration, but I would appreciate it.
If somebody
If
has
anyone's got it.
inspiration
Yeah.
and they want to use it for this is a very good use of it because it's a very permanent thing. We're going to go ahead and give about a minute as you go ahead and roll the dice.
Calculating stuff.
Yep. As you're doing that, a little bit of what you see as you continue forward. It is closer to the end of September by the time that you and the caravan do leave. And as you make your way down south back towards the old ford, you notice that as the autumn air begins to make things a little bit colder, there doesn't seem to be as much wildlife, whether it's deer or whatnot. Just in general, in these vales, the East Upper Vales. As you do eventually, within a couple of days, make your way down to the Old Ford, a very familiar crossing. You see Osred the Rider. He is one of the chief characters or chief players in the Beorning settlements. He greets you and he says, "Oh, hail and well met. It seems like it was only just a few days ago that we saw you, but it must have been weeks. Tell me, how be your hobbit friend Dindy?"
He's doing about as well as he can. He went through some stuff, but I think he'll be all right in the end. Just needs to take some time to rest and recover. Encountering goblins and orcs is not really something that most people come out of entirely unscathed. He was lucky to get out sound in body, but I worry for him.
He kind of nods his head understandingly, and he furrows his brow as if to think, and then he thinks to himself. He starts kind of like patting himself like on his person, like digging through kind of like his hide armor and whatnot. And he's like, "Speaking of which," and he kind of comes in close, so as enough for the Breelanders and also Igwar not to hear. And he says to you and Valineth, "Your activities near the High Pass have caused quite a stir. Past couple of weeks since you left that terrible place. Orcs and goblins have been pouring out of the mountains, let's just say. And my men, they've been on guard and easily dispatched. They seem unorganized, and they seem to be carrying all kinds of treasures, which brings us to business." And he basically opens his shirt, and
tunic
he pulls out 2 coin purses and says, "It's not much, but you did tell us that they had some kind of a treasure hoard down beneath the mountain. And it is not hundreds of silver worth of this for a hoard, but you've done us a service by not only cutting off the head of the one who organized them, but, well, sending them scattering. The more orcs and goblins we slay in the Vale, and the more unsuspecting they are, well, the safer the Vales will eventually be." And so he gives you and Valineth each a pouch of 14 silver pieces.
Sweet. Fainus was going to say, well, a scattered front is much easier to dispatch than an organized force. I'm glad we're able to make this little spot in Middle Earth a little bit brighter.
Indeed, and because of your help, you can cross this bridge, at least for the foreseeable future, as long as we, and he looks around and he kind of breathes in the fine crisp air, as long as it stays peaceful. You can cross this bridge without any delay. You have Osred, captain of the Ford's guard. You have my word.
Thank you. Thank you, Osred. I hope that next time that we meet, it's still on good circumstances. this caravan here should be making its way back through in the spring. Um,
Where do you plan
so
on
yes.
going? Speaking of which, you just came from this direction.
I'm actually traveling over to the land of the hobbits, the Shire. If you remember that when we had the little ones with us, that's
Oh,
where they were intending to go. They never ended up getting their supplies, and what they did have was taken by all the goblins and orcs. Can't really have them this far out with limited supplies.
the life of an adventurer, always on the move. Well, it
I
is
wouldn't
your
trade
duty
it
to
for
do so.
anything.
There is comfort to being able to do just the normal rounds, but I do understand, and you have survived well quite a bit. Your tales of your time in Mirkwood, and obviously clearly your expedition down in the Goblin Tunnels, it has become well known. Us Beornings have well, we have our eyes and ears open. If you are to pass, well, for the most part, you are friends to the Beornings, and hopefully we are to you.
Yes, no, of course. It's a beautiful, beautiful bit of land.
It is
The
indeed, and we
Mirkwood,
hope to keep
the
it that way.
Mirkwoods, yeah, the Mirkwoods grow dark, but it's good to take a moment of respite and to know that there are still people out there in Middle Earth doing their best to keep the shadows at bay. As long as that is the goal of the Beonings, I will count you as my friends as well.
He basically reaches out his hand to kind of do the forearm handshake.
Yeah.
And again, the one thing about the Beornings that's interesting is they're not direct descendants of Beorn. And this
Mhm.
is probably described to you by Igor.
Yeah.
They are actually a people that came from kind of the northern Misty Mountains. They are a large
Mhm.
folk and large in stature, but they came to Beorn as a pseudo kind of like leader, someone to look at. They saw in the battles of the five armies. He was
Mhm.
a strong figure to be able to follow behind, and they came in to join with that. And so Osred,
Yeah.
I know he's told you about kind of his struggles where he used to be the leader, now he's kind of had to take a back seat, but you don't see any like kind of vision of that in his eyes. He seems happy, he seems joyous, and as he grips your forearm, you can feel it nice and strong in your arms as he kind of towers up above you. But you deliver the same force back, and he grins
Yeah.
from ear to ear, and he says, "Beyond your way, the lot of you. Make sure you make it over the high pass before the end of October. If you don't, that's when the weather starts setting in. Keep an ear out, stay vigilant. You know those hills get misty during the evening."
Yes. All right, crew. All right, crew. You heard the man. Let's be on our way.
Valineth, he calls out, "Huzzah! This is a great idea. I cannot wait to go home."
Huzzah, indeed.
Huzzah! And so you continue your trek westward.
Mhm.
This is very much a very similar trail that you have been, and it's kind of starting to feel a little monotonous at this point. It takes you about a day before you start ascending up into the hills. I can go ahead and grab your token to kind of just
Mhm.
see where you are. It takes you about a day to begin to start ascending up into the hills. Taking the nice familiar paths, you
Mhm.
are able to set up good camps for the evening, shelter with the ponies that you have, and tell good campfire stories, and much revelry is to be had. I'm going to have you make a survival check for me.
Yeah. Gotta remember where everything is.
I know,
There
right?
we go. I got a 9.
With that, as everyone kind of takes the watch for the night, you can see that specifically Tom, uh, he pretty much goes up to you and tells you to your face, "I don't want to take watch alone." You remember back to the time up on the hill, and he was the one who seemed kind of the most shattered by the hopelessness caused by, and he's definitely suffering a little bit of trauma from his current experience. However, Bill, able to stand firm, he decides to, every time that Tom keeps watch, Bill is going to be there with him. And as you follow the paths, you notice that there are a number of footprints that are goblin and orc size, and so you are on high alert. And fortunately, as you begin to make your way up into the high pass, again, past familiar places, you're able to, during the day, early part of the day, basically go past the old ancient settlement that you had encountered the ghost, so you didn't have to stop there for the evening.
Yeah, we're not staying here for the night. I'm not doing that again. It's like, what do you mean? No, look, we're just not dealing with it.
Valineth is like, trust me, if you're having nightmares from your previous encounters, oh man, wait until you have the cold fingers of death around your neck, pressing you in, and he's just being like, not a care in the world. Just
Yeah, he's like, maybe turn it down a bit. I just don't want to go on another time traveling romp.
Oh yes. If there is anywhere for us to seek protection, it would be up there. And he points like off in the distance. You can barely see kind of the cliff where the old where the burnt trees are. However, it is early in the morning at this point when you do get to that, and so you decide as a party to keep pressing onward.
No, yeah, definitely. Faenor would definitely try and keep the path not very well trodden over there, so that the things of the dark don't try and make a trap out of it.
By
You
the end,
know?
mhm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One detail I was going to say is you said Tom's the one who's been having troubles with watches.
Mm-hmm. Tom
Um,
Lumpy Face.
Feanor actually would probably, stay up on like for parts of those watches and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and would probably just spend time talking to him about the Brelands, trying to like make him think more of home while they're on watch. Obviously, when the other guys are asleep, more or
Mm-hmm.
less. But just the kind of things to try and get his mind off of what has happened, and to tell him like stories of their fallen friend, things like that to try and help him cope with his grief a little bit more than he seems to have.
And fortunately, you've been doing what you could. Actually, the one thing that is quite impressive is the fact that Agatha has done a very good job of embalming the body of Andy. So Andy is currently in the wagon with you, decaying at a very, very, very slow rate. But it's one of those things where, as you tell stories, Bill is constantly like, it's okay. He's still with us. He's still with us. And well, at least in body, maybe not spirit. But
Yeah, and he probably even Feanor probably even spends a little bit of time saying that he understands this loss and talking about Jalen, because we hadn't really told these guys that Jaden had died. We had kind of breezed past that the first time that we'd met them,
Mhm.
or that we met them again.
And if you
And
remember, it was, I think,
yeah,
only Andy that actually knew Jalen, and Andy's the one who
yeah,
perished. So,
yeah. So, but being able to talk of it's like I understand having like the anguish of having a friend fall in battle. Like even even in my youth, as I patrolled the Mirkwood with friends and family alike, it's you see people you care about fall, but you know that it's for something greater. Andy's death wasn't in vain. If he hadn't fought as hard as he had and done everything in his power to help us, think of all the other lives that could have been lost. Your friend died a true hero, a warrior's death. And I know that in whatever afterlife that men go to, you'll be at a place of honor. Not very
Igor.
many get to go to that point, that go to a point and have sacrificed themselves to save so many.
Igor slaps a hand on your shoulder, and he still like has a small gimp from his poisoned arrow wound, but Valinith was able to treat it pretty well. But he slaps a hand on your shoulder, Faenor, and says, "Ah, yes, yes, comfort in the words of friends. Think about this. We're surrounded by friends, each and every one of us. Nothing bonds someone like enduring combat and battle together. Well, yes, we do lose people from here and there, and from time to time. It's such is life. Elves often are blessed with long lives, but I look at it as also a curse." And Valinith just kind of like looks and like is like nodding assuredly.
Yeah.
They live long lives, but they also see so many more people pass before them, and just count yourself lucky that for the short amount of time that we are here on this Middle Earth, that we can make an impact in people's lives, and more importantly, treat every day like it is our last, especially us as guards, adventurers, and he points to everyone. There's something that calls us, something, well, let's just say the greater good. And Andy's sacrifice was, as Faenor had said, to protect each and every one of us. And he did a mighty fine job of doing that, so to say.
Keep him in your heart. You know, grieve him, but as the days pass, the grief will pass. But don't let your memory of him pass. What he
And
gave was special, and it'll always be a part of you, for good and for worse.
Tom shakes his head and says, I know, it hurts so bad. When I first took Dindy up at the Prancing Pony, I thought this would be exciting adventure, and it was for a bit. I got to see the world. I got to meet all of you. But seeing my best friend die before my very eyes, it's a burden that I'm going to have to bear, and I don't think I can get over it so easily, but I feel safe knowing that I have friends like you, Faenor, like you, Valinith, and Igwar, and also you, Bill. It gives me strength.
It is the strongest loves that call the strongest grief. That is how you know that you cared. If you had felt nothing, then what would his... It meant his life was nothing, but the fact that you grieve so deeply shows me how much you cared. You will be okay.
He wipes his nose, and he's has a very red, puffy eyes. This has been a kind of an emotional roller coaster, especially for him. But he is here. He's strong, and you can tell he's very excited to get home. And with that being the case, by the end of the day, you make your way up to the area of the ring fort. As the sun begins to set, you're going to have to set camp somewhere around here. It doesn't have to be the ring fort, but Igwar, he does mention, he's like, it's the most defendable position that we have. But there's also a small little kind of wooded area, as I had mentioned, kind of off to the southwest. And there's other hilltops as well. But
Yeah.
so it's kind of up to you guys where you want to make camp.
Because this is the spot that we got ambushed last time, right?
Yeah, so it's the spot that they were trapped at.
Yes. No, Faenor is definitely going to, seeing the strategic advantage that was able to give them, is definitely going to and basically make camp there. Also, with the idea of if there are any orcs and goblins and stuff around, they know what happened here. They know that Ubers got murdered, and then the people who last came through here are monsters that tore apart everything that they had. So they'll probably try to avoid this area for at least a little while. So at least that's what's going through his head and what he's trying to think of. They won't want to go back to a place of defeat so soon. Be a bit of a sore spot for any of them.
Absolutely. I'm going to have you make a perception check as the night goes on.
An 18.
You listen, and as you do so, you're on red alert. You don't really see any movements in the shadow outside of maybe the small animal here and there. You don't even hear the sound of goblin calls or wolf cries or anything like that. It is a peaceful night. And as it draws into kind of the early morning and the mist begins to descend upon the mountains, fortunately where the ring fort is it's elevated you up high enough that you're above that. And so it's not cascading over your campsite. So you can see everything kind of in a 365-degree view or 360-degree view. And as you basically sit and look out, Valinith, he sits down and is next to you and says, "So, buddy, tell me, what are your plans going forward?"
Wow, that got serious quick.
Well, It's one of those things that I've been contemplating for quite some time. When we separated back at, here. Funny to mention it. But when we separated back here a few weeks ago, and I was helping lead the rest of them back to the Easterly Inn, all the loss, all of the sadness that I witnessed with all of them, it made me realize that this adventuring has been not grand per se, but it's been eye-opening. I never had companions that I could call my friends and my own, and I do know that the things that we've done, the people we've helped, has made a lasting impact on me, and I am 778 years old, mind you. And so that's a long time to be able to make that, and you're a mere 100 and... How old are you? he looks at you.
101.
101. Look at you, just a spry young fella. But you, a mere 101, have experienced the same things that I have, and I've lived 7 lifetimes longer than you. I'm going to tell you this, Faenor. It's got me thinking. It's got me thinking about my life moving forward and kind of reorienting my purpose. You know, I set off.
Do you want to be a doctor anymore?
No, of course I do. Especially now that I've seen the way
really
that
worried.
Jess practices medicine. It's quite
oh my
concerning.
God, you've noticed it too. I was worried that I was the only one who thought it was ridiculous.
The worst part is the lemon juice. Stay away from that.
Oh, God. I know that we need to have citrus, but I didn't think it was quite so literally.
Yeah. It stings.
Yeah, no.
Anyways, and he shakes
No,
his head.
but
That's neither here nor that's neither here nor there.
Yes.
One of the things that I've been contemplating is being on these adventures, starting from meeting you in the Dalelands and joining you in the melee and just getting to fight with all of you and get to know you. It's made me realize that I'm much stronger than I thought that I was, but the reason for my strength is because, well, I had you. I went off, I left Imladris years ago. Nearly 5 years ago, believe it or not. In search for my father. I don't know how much you know about my explorations of Wilderland, but I've scoured the entire area, up and down, and I've seen no sign of him. And I do think that the road is calling me home to see what I can find out about my father. The adventures have been great with you, but I have a purpose, and I need to accomplish that. And if he is not in Wilderland, I need to see if maybe the western part of the Misty Mountains my father still is. That is where he went missing. And so I shall, unfortunately, I think for the time being, have to bid the company adieu. I will be spending some time, some much-needed rest in Imladris when we get there. And then, well, seeing what I can do to try to find my father in Eriador. But that isn't to say that you're still not my companions. You are my companions for life, of course. You know that. And if destiny and fate calls us back together, by darn it, I will be here. And I will be a better healer, hopefully, at the time, and hopefully a better shot. Not hitting people in the buttocks with my arrows at night.
Yeah. Faenor is, he's been letting Valanoth talk. And talk to the point where it just gets to the point where it's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And Faenor is kind of just like, is this a camp when we were doing it, or when we're on the road?
Yeah, so you two are keeping watch, just yourselves. The other 3 are sleeping.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And he's silent for a little bit, but after a while he goes, I think I understand. I know the lengths that I would go to for the lengths I have gone to. The people that aren't even my own blood. I fought a giant, crazy spider in the Mirkwoods and saved people who had been our captors, but also my dearest friend. I trusted that Mogdred would be a good enough person, despite him being kind of a dick.
You noticed that too, did
I've
you?
yes, I dived into a goblin and orc infested hole like cave to save a single life. I don't have this purpose that you talk of, like not the same. But I know that if my father were missing and that he could be somewhere, I would travel beyond the edges of the earth. I would go anywhere I could, even and if it truly was that he was gone, I know that much like you, if your father has passed on, you'll see him in the halls of Mandos and Armen. The will of the Valor, that's what it entails. That's what awaits every elf.
It does
If we
remind
know,
me.
yeah,
It does remind me of well, it reminds me of my Lord Elrond. What do you know of Elrond, Lord Elrond?
I know that he is. What age? He's a first age elf, is he not?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's like a second generation elf. So
yeah,
like not the very first, but like the second. So he's
yeah,
been around since the first age.
yeah.
Hmm.
I know that he's incredibly old and powerful. I know that very little, honestly. My father taught me enough about bloodlines and the first generation of elves and their children, enough to know it in passing. At least it has been probably about 70 years since I did any solid reading on that. I got a bit too preoccupied, but no, I know enough in passing.
He takes a deep breath and he says, "When we get to Imladris, one of the things that you will see of Lord Elrond is he is powerful, as you said. He is perhaps knowing beyond any comprehension of anything that anybody has been through. I've lost my father and I'm continuously looking for him, but it's nothing compared to what Lord Elrond has experienced." And he kind of like Valnith, he looks at the ground and like looks to his hands and he says, "For me, I have hope. I have hope of finding my father one day, and perhaps if I do, being united with him again, just seeing his face one last time is more than enough for me to well, at least be grateful for my life and be grateful for everything that I've experienced. And his absence hasn't been for naught. It's allowed me to be able to know you, to be able to see you, and meet all of these wonderful companions that I've made here in Wilderland and abroad. But when I think of Lord Elrond, and when I see him, the more time that I've spent in Imladris, I see a deep set sadness in his eyes. When Well, when Tom had, or when Igwar had mentioned that time is tough for us that are immortal, I can see that it really weighs on his shoulders. And the things that you do, the things that I do, what we've experienced is nothing compared to him. He's literally seen his wife kidnapped, after failed rescue attempts, tortured, and eventually when he reclaimed her, she wasn't the same. The woman or the elf whom he loved, as beautiful as the stars, she was a husk of herself. My biggest fear isn't necessarily dying or seeing my father dead. My biggest fear is losing myself in the attempt to do so, and, worse yet, perhaps I do one day find my father, and he is also that husk of an elf that Celebrain was. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to be in Imladris soon, and, well, since you haven't been there, let me tell you, you will find rest. They say it makes you, much time spent there makes you soft, and it's been very evident for my upbringing. It has made me quite soft. I've over 700 years of my life, and I hadn't experienced the world outside of, the Hidden Valley. And my goodness, I think I've grown more out here than I have 700 years within there. But that isn't to say that there isn't a lot to be gained from being there.
I think a lot of that's my influence. Next thing you know, you're going to be fighting in Imladris. Yeah.
No fire is allowed. We do not have a fire department.
No, I will admit I am saddened by the idea of losing another. I know I'm not losing a companion, but I haven't been very close to very many people since the defeat of Smaug. Since I traveled away, I've only by being with you, all of you, that I've been able to meet Cranthiel again. I hadn't seen my father. I rarely spent more than 2 or 3 months in one place. I spent whole winters just in the woods surviving, not seeing another soul. I am saddened by the idea of losing such a trusted companion, but I hope you know that you've had an effect on me. As much as you've grown stronger and you've become a fairly competent warrior, you're not someone who uses it when it is not required. And it is only through our friendship that I have... yes. And through our friendship, I have been able to grow myself and accept some things and try and view the world a different way. It's not as dark as it once was. I can look at the world with a little bit more nuance, I suppose. A bit more hope. A little more light. Seeing what you've done to help others, even those that were once enemies, it's had an effect. I just hope you know that. And even if you ever need me, I know I'm hard to track down, but if ever you need me in our time apart, find a way to get a hold of me, and I will come. There will be no questions. You're like a brother.
And
I will come to your aid.
A little brother of mine.
Yeah, I will come to your aid, whatever the call.
He nods his head, and he looks you dead in the eyes, and he says, "It's a curious thing. Friends. Of course, I had plenty of them growing up, but I think it's true. The bonds that you forge with people during battle, shared experience and travel, it binds you together. I will forever consider you of my kin. And think of it this way. If ever you think the shadow is spreading too far, just look to the west. Past the misty mountains, these mountains that rise before us, Valineth, son of Morbeth, will be, actively fighting the shadow. And the same goes for you. If you are ever to need me, if you are ever to require a little bit of hope, assistance, wisdom, something I am full of, you know where to find me. Or at least you know where to get a hold of me. I'm glad you're on this journey with me, Faenor. And I know it is unfair of me to ask this of you. Well, that is to send news to Theodric and Jess of my departure. But I trust that our paths will cross again one day. And I am so grateful and so looking forward to each of you so far, but looking forward to seeing how you've grown the next time I see you. Who knows, and maybe next time I see you all, Theodric will have as much hair on his face than Jess has on her feet.
You're just trying to get out of Theodric's terrible dream prophecies, aren't you? I see this for what it is now.
Well, that is one thing that is quite concerning. Insomnia is not a good thing. And he points over to the barely sleeping Tom. It does things to a person. The more you don't sleep, the more you start dreaming of wild things.
Hmm. No. Yes. Hmm. It will be a sad day of our departure, but
It's
I
not
suppose I'll
goodbye.
probably
It's
be.
until we meet again. The road goes ever onward and onward, as a very wise man had said.
Yes. I'll let Theodric and Jess both know of your decision, but I would consider writing a letter on my way
Indeed.
back through to the back through to the inn. I'll collect it. You know, if even if you are not still here, leave it with someone you trust, and I'll take it to them. At least I know that no matter what happens, I'll see you again. Even if we both perish in this long battle, I will see you again.
Thank you, my friend.
Mm.
I will. I will write a letter. I will make sure to write it quite eloquently so you can keep it for your records. That being said, we still have a journey ahead of us to go, and our goodbye isn't. Well, it isn't goodbye yet. We still have, and he
Yes.
looks, and you look at the enormous high pass, these mountains that stand between you and the hidden valley, and he says, "Well, we best rest up. It's going to be, it's going to be a climb." And he
Mm.
taps you on the shoulder, and then he goes over and he begins to kind of start his meditation for the evening.
Mhm. Yeah, Faenor is just gonna keep watch until pretty much it's the 4 hours till he needs to wake up,
Mhm.
and he's just going to contemplate it.
Mhm.
All the things that he's been through with Valineth from their first encounter, really like at the festival,
Mhm.
to the that night, and just thinking of stuff like the being able to dine in the halls with King Bard and all their joking, and like how this figure, this like person in his life, has helped change him. They've like Valin's been an incredible influence on him. The Feanor that he's thinking to himself, the Feanor that I was would not have been able to have made it through the woods with those wayward elves, because he probably would have done something too rash and let his emotions control him and probably would have perished. It's only with the guidance and wisdom that Valnath has been able to bring, and has been able to like teach him in a way that he can understand through action, that he's changed. And Faenor is just going to stay looking at the stars, what few he can see, and contemplate this friend and what it means for his eventual departure. And then he's going to go to bed.
And with that, time passes, and with before you know it, the sun is up, the fog, the mist has cleared, and your path ahead of you, well, dauntingly stands before you. Fortunately, you have people who have tread this path, and as Iguar and Valinith guide you into beneath the shadows of the misty mountains, taking the low path of the high pass, you begin to walk before the winter begins to set in. At this point, it is October 1st. You begin to depart beneath into the mountains, and it is not in distance-wise, it's not that long of a trek. However, you even notice with Nim, to a degree, that the cold has begun to set. There is active snow. Every single step that you take has crunches, and
Mhm.
the evenings grow bitter cold. The fires that you have to light, while they have to be small, you find yourself and everybody huddled as close as you possibly can around these fires, perhaps hoping
Yeah.
not to be seen by any wicked creatures. But I'm going to have you make a survival check for me.
I call dibs being closest to Igua.
And Igor's like, "What are you all?" And he looks at you, he's like, "You milk
We're just like,
drinkers," as he just drinks some milk by himself.
I got an 18 on that survival check.
You fortunately, as you are being led through this pass by Iguar and Valinith, you, as kind of a pseudo lookout slash scout, figure out kind of the safest places to be able to camp for the night. There are many opportunities or many instances in the night. Probably this journey between the basically both sides of the Misty Mountains takes you actually close to 8 or 9 days to undergo. It is a very, very long slog, especially with the ponies and the wagon. But that being said, you are very alert the whole time about your surroundings and what's going on. And you dodge on multiple occasions what look to be wandering wolves that perhaps are hungry for a little bit of pony, but also orcs and goblins as well. You've been able to see their tracks and to be able to veer off and find places of safety. And so between the Wilderland and Eriador, you do not encounter anything, and it is a slow, but it is a safe passage as you descend into the region of Eriador. And as you do so, it's a beautiful sight to see. You're kind of at the top of these mountains. As open out in front of you, you see miles upon miles upon miles of rolling hills. This country is quite different than Wilderland, Mirkwood, or even the Dalelands, anything that you've experienced before. It is not, even though it is the midst and starting to get into the middle of October, it is not your typical kind of dead wild grass. It is rolling green hills and pastures. You can see off in the distance there are storm clouds that seem to be pretty pervasive, as you see kind of the gray streaking of rain in the lands far to the west. And it looks lush, and it looks wild, and it looks endless. But you begin to descend into basically the foothills of the Misty Mountains. And with this, you can see Valanoth. He is very, very intrigued, but looking at the basically certain signs that are within the sign of the path, signs that an untrained eye would absolutely miss. And he tells you, and he pulls you over and kind of calls you over. He's like, Faenor, there is a secret to finding the hidden valley of Imladris. Some say you just need to follow the Bruinen, and he points down the mountains, and you see this, like, off in the distance. You see this river. Doesn't look as impressive as the Anduin, but he says, some say you just follow the Bruinen all the way up until you find Imladris, but that is not the case. That is what they want you to think. And he says, this is what you need to be looking for. And on the side of the path, you can see that every now and then you will see it just looks like a stone, but a small white stone. Pure white, but enough to blend in with the regular surroundings. This is the secret to finding Imladris. We have strategically placed these white stones to be able to guide lost travelers to the place of safety, to the hidden valley. And because of that, it has been well hidden. These are things that, well, let's just say the evil creatures of the world don't look for. And this is a secret that I entrust to you, Faenor, not to spread. If the enemy were to ever find the hidden valley, it might be a sad day for all of us elves and for, well, the rest of the free folk of Middle-earth.
I'll keep it close to my heart and tell only those who must absolutely know this information.
Of course. And I am curious myself if Caranthiel and company were able to follow the path. I did map it out for them, but again, it is twisting paths, and as you continue to travel, you notice exactly this. You are just like going back and forth between valley and hill, foothill, up on top. It just seems like you are just going all over the place with no real sense of direction. This is genuinely, from what your experience is, just wandering. But the whole while you keep following these kind of small markers of white rock as you begin going to and from hill to hill. Like so much so where like the wagon can barely fit into some of these kind of like crevices without like tipping over or getting stuck. It's a very finely tuned passageway to be able to go, and disguised enough where it's definitely not a clear path. And within about a day, you begin to notice that the everything around you kind of has started to become shaded in a golden hue. From what your eyes and like your intuition says, I'm gonna have you make a nature check to tell me what that is.
All right. A natural 1 for a 2.
Natural 1 for 2. With your intuition, you are flabbergasted because you completely lost track of time, as if this wandering has gotten you just completely turned around. You have no idea which way is which, what's back, what's forth, and you just feel hopelessly lost, only trusting in Valineth to be able to guide you.
Is it purely the stones? Like that's the only thing that's even got any hint of like.
And they're so scattered where like it could easily be just like there's just this random stone, like one stone in like a mixture of like all of this. It just could just be completely random.
Yeah.
It's a very uncertain thing. But as you begin to kind of take note of these things and all of it, you look up at the sky and you can see that the sun is at high noon, and you break over basically this hill, and immediately within your sight, you begin to see what is a beautiful valley. It is a valley of golden beams. It is not high noon here. The sun is at high noon, but it is golden hour here. You see actually the kind of like the heavenly beams begin to cascade along the mountainside, and the leaves at this point of the year have turned a beautiful lush gold. And there is now a very real and evident path that has that you can see as you begin to descend into the valley of Imladris. And to your eyes, you can see this a great river and waterfall that kind of cascades down the side of the mountains up to in the south, and the river runs northward, and you see this series of settlements, many outlying kind of single houses in this valley, but right at the center of it you see this enormous house with a bunch of different other buildings that kind of surround it in the most beautiful, almost work of art that you have ever seen. And at the center of this you see the house of what you can only imagine is Elrond himself. It's a large mansion with many halls, pillared porches and comfortable guest rooms. You can see many windows, and it's multiple floors. You can see people out on the balconies. Elves just seem to be gathering, and just without a care in the world seem to be living their lives. There are several outer buildings that are connected to this main house, with covered walkways, and many winding paths and gardens and terraces that are open above the steep bank of the river. Bells ring to summon you. As you go down, there's these kind of almost like small chimes that begin to immediately make you feel comfortable, as you grow closer and closer to the river's edge. You're making your way down towards kind of this water house, as you wind your way down kind of this path over in this direction. You begin to cross over a bridge, and there is a nice kind of greeting house for you to be able to see, and the architecture is ethereal, it's almost like a dream as you do. And maybe the things that you're feeling, you look around and it has the same effect on everybody, including Valineth. Like his eyes are like open, and he's just like, he's lived 700 years of his life here, but it's such a breathtaking view that like as he brings it in, you can see that he takes a deep breath like through his nostrils and then kind of lets it out slowly, and he says, "I'm home, Faenor. Welcome to Imladris." As
you look good.
So do you, my friend. And you, as you look at yourself, you notice that you're immediately in this relaxed posture, and like you're like any weapons that you have, if you're holding any, are like kind of just drooped down to your side and just kind of like awe and disbelief.
Faenor does have a very brief moment as we're walking up. He's like, "Oh no, this is an entire place of Valniths. Oh no!" And he like has that moment of, "Oh, people are going to be commenting about my hair and my appearance so often." Like just like not like sadness or like even upset. He's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to deal with that this whole time I'm here." Oh God. Well, onwards we go.
As you cross this bridge, you have you're in a place called the River House, and standing before you are a number of elves. A couple of them are at work and labor, very leisurely doing the work of what would probably take 2 or 3 men easy. Very casually, kind of like doing the water milling and making sure that they're gathering what they need from whether it's fish or whatever the case from the river. But there is one elf kind of with like almost like long, bordering on red, but like kind of light brown hair, and he has his hands crossed in front of him, and he bows to all of you as the company, and he says, "Welcome home, Master Valineth." And Valineth, he says in return, "'Tis good to be back, Lindir." And he basically turns to you and says, "This is my good pal Faenor. And, of course, you know Igwar and the rest of the Breeland boys, as we call them. But I am home, at least for the time being." And Lindir, he bows his head and says, "You must be tired. You must be weary. It is nice to meet you, Faenor. I am Lindir, head servant of the House of Elrond. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance." And he just bows. He doesn't hold out a hand to a shake or anything, but he gives you a bow, and he has a soft smile on his face. It's a very calming thing to be able to see this.
Faenor like bows back and is like, "And it's nice to meet you, Lindia. Never been here before, actually.
Not many have.
I'm sure you can tell. Yes, it's beautiful. It feels familiar somehow. I'm not quite sure why."
The Hidden Valley has that effect on many. The wearies of the road that you experience are lifted here. Some say it's elf magic. Some say it's just the majesty of Middle-earth. But what you can plan on while during your stay here, Faenor, is safety, comfort, and a good night's sleep.
I know I only just arrived, but I feel like I must ask. About 9 months ago, some of my kin were trying to pass through this place.
It's free real estate.
A beautiful red-headed woman of the name of Caranthiel. Did she make her... And an elven man with a covered face named Nornir. Did they make their way through this place?
These individuals. Well, our scouts picked them up probably in June. They seemed like they had been through a lot, wandering to and from. They had a map. In your handwriting, it looks like, Valinith. But there was also a note from you, and we brought them in, introduced them to their hosts, and they are here today.
Big sigh of relief. Like, as much as it's like been like relaxing, being like the natural kind of aura of this place, that was like the one thing that I feel like, despite all the comfort and safety of this place, that was still eating at him. And now even that's kind of fallen away.
Don't you fret.
Yeah.
Your friends are safe. They told us quite a bit about what you've been through together. This name Faenor. It feels strangely familiar. Your friend, Caranthiel, talks about you quite a bit. She will be happy to know that you have arrived.
It'll be good to see them again.
But without further ado, and he points upward as you follow along kind of the main, not main path, but like there's a small little garden path that he gestures up towards the big house. If you would follow me, your host would like a word with you, both of you. And he begins to lead you up kind of this very kind of gradual incline. And it is through, there's a small kind of river that trickles down, but it's through all kinds of gardens, and you can hear music playing from all the balconies that are about you. And everybody that sees you greets you with a smile and a bow. It's almost scary if it weren't for the fact that their faces look so genuine. I'm going to have you make an insight check for me, Faenor.
As he's walking, Faenor is probably like running his hands through his hair and like pouring a bit of water from his water skin out and like rubbing his face because he's like, oh, I'm about to meet a celebrity. And he's like, oh God. And he's like rubbing his face on his cloak, like just trying to scrub himself up very quickly after having been on the road. Got an 11 for that insight.
This is absolutely the case. Everyone seems very happy to see you. You can see many people giving kind of small, polite waves to you. And as they see Valinith, they have these deep, like, grins on their face, almost kind of like welcome home. And they, as their eyes pass from each one of you, it's not as if their eyes are all on Valinith, but they greet each one of you in turn, as if they have known you their entire lives. It's comforting. It's not creepy. It's very... You feel at home. It's that strange sense of, I've been here before. But you begin to follow upwards, and I'm assuming Nim's still with you?
If it's not really polite to have Nim with me, then I might have left Nim like where someone would leave a horse.
They haven't said anything, and
Nim's coming with me the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
If he's just gonna walk, if I can walk around the place and no one says anything, stuff him. I don't live here. I can do what I want.
Nim also seems like he is right at home too. He doesn't seem skittish or scared or afraid to be seen. As he continues to walk, you make your way up to this great hall. Essentially, that's what it is. It's kind of this open hall with all kinds of like open balconies and terraces and whatnot. And as you come in contact with it, you see that there are many elves that do greet you. I can have you make a perception check for me.
21.
None of these people are guards. Nobody has weapons on them. From what you're able to tell, they're not expecting violence. They're not expecting evil of any kind to be here. How could there be? This is the Hidden Valley. You are here as a welcome guest. If you are here, you are supposed to be here. That's how you feel as you make your way here. But as you kind of duck beneath this giant kind of set of arches and this giant door, you notice that you're on this big kind of almost a front porch. It's a vast portico. It's large enough to shelter many horses, in which there's actually a number of kind of pseudo stables. But you see that actually Nim is right at home and goes and starts kind of munching on some of the grass that are in one of those, and he seems just right at home, like he's ready to eat. Doing his thing, chewing the cud. I don't know if that's what elk eat, but that's what he's doing.
They generally eat like berries and like flowers and grass and similar things like that. So.
Sure, that's what he's doing. He's eating those good things.
I'm like, oh no, that's horse food. No, Nim, what? Oh god, I'm gonna have to deal with that later. And he's just hoovering it down. Yep. I'm not going to be able to stop him with that, anyway.
As you look around in this general, it's a big open space, but you see that it's adorned with a large silver fountain in the shape of a slender tree drooping over a marble basin. Many stained glass windows open on the porch at both sides of the front doors of the House of Elrond. The wide wooden doors are solidly built using wood from what looks to be a single holly tree. I'm going to have you make a nature check for me.
Can I have advantage on this because I am a woodwright?
Yeah, I would say 100% you would.
A 7.
You can tell for sure that they are of the same tree. However, something is a little bit off. I mean, the doors are white, they're smooth panels, and they appear to be devoid of any decorations, but something is odd. In this kind of golden sunlight that is coming through in the valley, it hits off the door and almost glitters. Like there's crystals like inside the grains of this wood. You're unsure of what it is, but it's very impressive. Almost as if like thousands of like tiny jewels have been cut and like ingrained into this wood. It's very, very impressive.
I'll say he does pause for like but a moment to just like really look at this and be like, that's some pretty impressive stuff right there. Valineth, have you seen like completely ignoring the fact that Valineth has lived here? He's like, this is really good. Like, I wonder how much that costs.
He's looking at you like this, just like, impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll admit it. It's
Once you've spent some time in Imladris, you will understand my high-quality taste and why I do not drink from the same cups that are on the very top shelf with lots of dust and dogs have drinking from.
Oh, Valineth, what will people here think when they find out you ate frogs?
Frog, I hear, is quite delicious, and it was quite delicious, but that's just between us.
All right, just because it was your birthday.
And he smiles at ear to ear and says, "Come, Lord Elrond is expecting us." And these doors open up to you as you make your way into kind of the central hall. As you see, you make your way in and you look at either side, and there are passageways that kind of extend to your left and to your right. But it's a wide opening facing the threshold of the house, and there is this magnificent entrance hall that you can see all the way down to the other end. And so you can see, like, basically nature all the way through. It's just like this hall that goes right through the middle of this building. Basically, there's this long high passage that leads across the building to what looks to be an eastern-facing porch and the gardens beyond. It's paved with large flagstones quarried from the misty mountains, and it's illuminated by lanterns hanging from the carved beams in the vaulted ceiling. I'm going to have you make a traditions check for me.
Not Faenor's strong suit. Ha! A 20. Not natural, but... Yeah.
There is a central lantern, which in this main hall, which is by far the largest of them. It very, very, very clearly is dwarven made. You don't know where it's from, but it looks old, and how you can tell it is dwarven made is it's got a reddish light that looks like it's dug deep underground. So there's kind of like this like reddish light of like being underground. This is something you're very familiar with in the halls of Thranduil, actually. Yeah. There's open passages to the left and right, and 2 flights of stairs that lead to upper floors. Along the walls of the hall hang basically the arms of the household of Elrond, together with many banners, flags, and pennants, relics from a time when Elrond was the herald of Gil-galad and marched with his host. And so you see all of these flags from the last alliance, and during that time, scattered throughout all the walls.
A good little part of Faenor's backstory is Gil-galad is a huge inspiration for why he wanted to become a warrior.
Heck yeah. So this is something that's really cool to you. I'm going to have you make a wisdom saving throw.
Last High Elven King?
Yep, last High Elven King. And that's why Elrond is Lord of Rivendell. He's not King. Yep. He's the last High King. So, yes, go ahead and make a wisdom saving throw for me.
5.
This is so impressive, and you're so drawn in by it that you begin to be distracted, and without further time that passes, you see that all the way at the other end of this place, Valineth has made his way, and he turns back and says, "Well, what are you waiting for, Faenor? Lord Elrond is waiting for us. I know it's impressive, but we'll have plenty of time to look at this, and I will fill you in on all of the histories of every single one of these pennants, these flags, ooh, and there's plenty to be able to learn. I don't know how long you plan on staying, but there is a wealth of knowledge here that I can share with you. You're gonna have to spend, and he begins calculating, a couple 100 years here. You've got lots of studying to catch up on.
Well, I don't think I'm gonna quite that long. But the important stories, like Gilgalad's final battle. Wow. To stand toe to toe with with essentially a god. Gosh, I could only wish to ever become that strong.
It's a big inspiration to me, and more importantly, my father. Actually, did you know, Faenor, that my father fought in the Battle of the Last Alliance?
I did not.
He did, indeed. He was considered one of the household archers, and my mother, apparently, she was quite in a shock when it happened, but this was years before I was born, of course. But I'm glad he survived, because that is why I'm here. But he was an expert shot, which is why I do believe that he is still alive. But that being said, it's a very complicated story. But yes, my father was part of it, so if you want more insight from someone who was at the Last Alliance, I have second-hand knowledge of it.
I would love to hear about it, but
Huzzah!
I think we've kept your lord waiting a little bit.
Oh, that's right, right. I failed my wisdom saving throw as well, and he...
and so Faenor, catches up with everyone else that had, kept walking in.
Mm-hmm.
Just
at this point,
awestruck.
all of the Breelanders and Iguar and the caravan, they actually stopped at this little building here. This looks to be some kind of loading zone or whatnot. So they actually parted ways and started getting ready there. It was just you, Valineth, and Nim that made your way to the main house.
Okay.
And Lindir, he looks to you and says, "The Lord is waiting. He would like to speak with each of you one at a time. Starting with you, Faenor."
Valineth, brushing himself down. How do I look?
You look hideous. Just kidding, you look great.
I punch him in the arm.
I'm not gonna miss that.
Yes. No.
Ow.
Well, can't keep a lord waiting.
Not that indeed.
Please thank you, Lindy. If you could lead the way.
Of course. And there's no door that you have to pass through. It's more kind of just like this threshold out onto the balcony. And this balcony overlooks the river and many gardens that fall back down behind it. It's basically large and sprawling, and Elrond, he is kind of at the far end of it as he's looking down. The sky at this point has begun to turn red. There is no sense of time that is here. It seems like you don't have no idea if you've been here for an hour. You don't know if you've been here for a day. But you see Elrond in kind of just all of his splendor. And he turns around and he looks to you. And as you do so...
sorry, would Faenor get kind of the same feeling that he's gotten on the brief moments where he's actually encountered Thranduil? Like that same kind of presence emanating from them?
It's a different presence. The feeling that you get from Thranduil is very cold. Not unkind, but it's very much, I've got business to make with you. He turns around, He doesn't necessarily smile at you, but he has these eyes of almost kind of understanding as he gazes at you. He's quite impressive. He is the lore master of Imladris, and he appears neither old nor young, and his countenance is combined with the wisdom of a king and the vigor of a strong warrior. He wears a circlet of silver upon his dark hair, and his eyes are the memories of years uncounted. He looks for you, and he looks absolutely in place in his home. This background and everything fits perfectly with what he is. He has these long silver robes that go down to the ground, and they glitter in the sunlight. And he holds his hand out to you, and he gives you as if to give you a handshake.
Faenor will. he'll almost like grip the hand, not as like strong as he would with other people, but like still firm.
Mhm.
Very much that's his personality. He'd walk up and he'd give him a firm handshake. Um, as much as he's in awe, this is yeah.
Mhm.
He's trying to give him a respectful greeting, but he's been living the rough and tumble life for a few years.
And as you do so, there's almost kind of like this jolt that goes up your arm as you are completely filled with warmth. There is some kind of magical presence just about him. Just simply touching him is something to be like, you're just like, this guy is the guy. You step back, you let go of his hand, and he gives you a soft smile, and he says, "Welcome to Imladris, Faenor the Lockdown. I have heard whispers of your impending arrival. Let us speak openly, for honesty benefits all in these troubled times."
I don't know what to even say. You seem to know who I am, and I only know stories of you.
He nods
Um,
his head. "I know your name. I know your title. I know those whom you keep in your company. But who do you say that you are, traveler? And from whence do you hail?"
I am Faenor the Lockdown, formerly. Actually, what was Faenor's last name? Faenor the Lockdown, formerly Faenor Galadhend. Um, and I am of Middle Earth. I hail from the Mirkwood, but it is not my only home. This Middle Earth is special, and as much as I am still loyal to my liege lord, I don't agree with what his views on the world are.
With understanding, Elrond looks back to you and he nods. "Welcome, Faenor. Of the Woodland Realm, Faenor of Middle-earth. Go ahead and make a introduction check for me." So this is going to be a tradition skill check for me.
Ooh. A 5.
He continues. "Rarely do paths lead to Rivendell without purpose. What quest brings you to the last homely house? Seek you aid, knowledge, or a haven of rest?"
Over this winter, if I may, I would like to stay with my companions, and when the spring comes, move my way through to the Breelands. I go to tell my friend's family of her passing. She died a true heroic death, defending the life of a child, an innocent, and she deserves the respect and for her family, the respect, all the honors of any great warrior, and her family deserves to know that great sacrifice she made, so that her name is not forgotten.
He shakes his hand in understanding. "Yes, tumultuous times we live in. I see that you found the hidden valley with one of my kin. What is your acquaintance with Valinor? How did your paths cross in the vast world?"
I met him in Dale. He'd he was there for the what was it called? It was, what is it called again? The Festival of Five Armies.
Mhm.
Yeah. And during that time, my first encounter with him actually was when we entered an archery competition together, and he very slightly outdid me. And I will admit I have not run into any of my high elven kin, anyone who had hailed from Rivendell. And then we engaged in a melee, a tourney, and yes, I think we did very well. He is a friend, almost like a brother. Through the bonds of combat, through the trials and tribulations, he's a teacher, friend, brother. a companion.
He's a good one at that. He smiles. You know, and he looks to the background behind him as he turns around, kind of offering you to join him as he looks out over the railing at the gardens below. In times of shadow, friends and foes reveal their true faces. Whom do you call allies, and whom do you dread as foes? Faenor, you have found allies in Valineth, son of Morbeth. You also have allies here that I know of. Who do you call foes?
Those things of the shadow. Those that would harm someone innocent, someone that would manipulate others. They don't have to be an orc or a goblin. Men have darkness in their hearts, and I personally know that there are elves that have let the shadow take them. It is those people that I wish to defend the innocent from. Those with hope, those that carry the light and inspire others. I aim to help heal this Middle-earth.
He turns to you and he looks you straight in the eyes, these piercing eyes as if they are looking into your very soul. Still a little smile on his face, and he says, "It is clear that you're quite young in years. For those of our lineage, at least. Tell me, what prompted you to leave home at an age so young? Surely there was more that Lord Thranduil could have taught you before departing on your journeys."
After the death of Smaug, and hearing the tales of the dwarves and Bilbo Baggins who came through my lands, and hearing of how these different people all came together, hearing how they were able to join against a greater shadow and slay it, that was inspiring to me. I didn't agree with more and more of what I was hearing, of closing off our borders, of trying to look after ourselves first and leave the rest of Middle-earth to fend for itself. There was too much chatter of that, and yes, I am young in years, and I didn't believe that I could truly understand this Middle-earth, its peoples, its struggles, without having gone and been amongst them. I lived 95 years, never leaving the Mirkwood. I had to go beyond. I had to meet men. I had to meet dwarves. I encountered orcs and wargs and goblins and men of the woods and men of the mountains. People from faraway lands. Beornings. I have encountered so much, and I would not be the same. I would not be who I am if I had not gone out on that adventure. If I had not seek to help others.
It's funny how the actions of someone so small, the actions of a hobbit, could move the world. So many that have come through here in recent years have been inspired by someone who I saw for the very first time no more than 6 years ago. Someone who wanted nothing more than to be at home with his books in front of the fire. I could tell when he was here in the company of dwarves, he would have been so comfortable to be here, to be home for the rest of his days. But there was something deep within him that drove him. 6 years later, we celebrate as a free peoples the death of a dragon, a usurper, the rise and fall of the king under the mountain, and many adventurers who took their first steps out into the world because of the bravery of a hobbit. Faenor, that could not have been an easy decision for you to make. I know of Lord Thranduil's temper. He concerns himself with the preservation of his peoples, a task that his father gave to him in his passing.
I will say Feanor does have like an actual genuine jolt of fear, like thinking that like he doesn't know if Elrond knows what he did
Mm.
In the wood, the burning of the bridge. He doesn't like, and that's like to his core, struck cold, kind of. As far as he knows, there's only like 2 other people in the whole world that truly comprehend what happened there. So,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have you make a wisdom saving throw for me.
A natural 1 for a 2.
This is very evident on your face, and he still smiling at you, and he kind of stares at you and ponders, almost kind of like this encouraging look, but his eyes are piercing, and he looks at you, and he kind of backs up a little bit, and he says, and he points to something that is hanging on your neck. Tell me, what is your experience with orcs?
Not very pleasant. Very recently, I slew an orc captain, and like I'd like pat the helmet that's like hanging off like the side of my pack. But many 6 years ago, I heard that there were orcs and goblins making their way towards the Battle of Five Armies. Well, later became known as the Battle of Five Armies. Me and my friend Caranthiel, doing what we could, stole away into the night to see what we could do to slow them down. When I found them, they were camped just shy of the bridge, just shy of the water. So brash. I did the only thing I knew. I soaked this bridge in oils and rope and cloth, stole away into their camp using the woods as cover, grabbing everything I could, and just before sunset, when they all began to arise and they began to cross that bridge, I set it alight, killing hundreds, defending peoples that I didn't know. I didn't know it till later, but I prevented a sizable force from coming in as reinforcements just days after the battle. I did not return home. This that I carry on my neck from the first orc that I killed with my own hands, one of the few that crossed that river, one of the few that made it to the other side. Sure, I'd picked off goblins and spiders in the woods. The first kill that I had so close, the first time that I felt so angry, was when I killed that orc. An affront to everything that should exist on Middle Earth. I keep this to remind me of that. Remind me of what happened that day.
He looks to you contemplative, and he begins kind of slowly walking, and you just find yourself following in turn as you walk. It's as if it's a pace. He puts his hands behind his back, and he just listens as you tell him this. You eventually make your way over to a wooden circular table, and he pulls out a chair for you to sit. And he sits across the table from you, waits for you to take a seat, and then he takes a seat. And he looks to you and he says, I understand. I understand that could not have been easy. And first time you take a life, even if it is something as vile as an orc, it changes you. You grow up immediately. Your innocence is gone. Innocence that we here at Imlagis work so hard to protect. But your words do ring true to my ears. Around that time, there was a group of orcs that had made their way north along the river running. I have sources that say they made their way into the Withered Heath, into the Grey Mountains. This aligns with perhaps the same force that you thwarted from crossing over the river running into the Mirkwood. And by doing so, you perhaps saved the lives of many elves, many woodmen, driving them into the desolate reaches, the desolate lands where no creature can live. And he points to your tooth again, and he says, "That is a token. That is a token of bravery, and not one to be taken lightly. Let it serve as a reminder to you. Orc, human, elf, dwarf, the life that you take should not be taken for granted. Yes, orcs are fell creatures, fell beings of the shadow that seek only death. But the more we kill, the more we can become like them." And then he points over, there's this essentially kind of like this like opened note that's on the table, and he slides it over in front of himself, and he pulls it out and kind of unfurls it. The envelope that it's in is different than the parchment. This is like a nasty, disgusting parchment that has been pulled out of it. And he begins to look and examine it a little bit, and he points and he says, as he slides it over to you, he says, "My scouts recovered this from a goblin no more than a 10-day ago. Does this name on the document mean anything to you?" And he's pointing at a name. It is written in common speech. It is difficult to make out what it says, but you can vaguely make out the name Gorgol.
That isn't one I recognize, is it?
Probably not.
Yeah, no, I didn't think so. No, I don't recognize it, but where did your men come across this? It isn't very long ago that the companions of Valnath and I went deep into caves and disturbed an entire hideout, sowing chaos with a goblin king. Goblins alike.
Well, that would make a lot of sense.
Is this near those hills?
We found them about 10 days ago, making their way into Eriador, in our hills. We had scouts that quickly dispatched them, but found this on their person. This Gorgol, from what I know, this is the son of Bolg, son of Azog, the great Gundabad orc. He kind of reclines a little bit and looks like, for the first time that you've spoken to him, his kind of like kindness and softness has broken, and it's like just sheer like piercing gaze, serious look. A dark power has grown in the north. Once merely a shadow, wounded from the battle of the 5 armies 6 years ago. But those who escaped have begun to rebuild in Mount Gundabad as whispers of Azog's successor hang on the breeze. I myself took part in this banishment of the shadow from the north those few years ago. But I do fear my efforts only postponed an impending storm. Faenor. That which hangs upon your neck, that is a sign that you have confronted the last survivors of the Battle of the Five Armies. If Gorgol saw your face and Caranthios, he will know. You are not safe if those orcs creep out of that mountain. Mount Gundabad used to be a sacred dwarven stronghold. Legend has it, every single target that has ever been in the ire of the Lord of Mount Gundabad since the orcs had taken over is written on a stone behind the great ancient dwarven throne. On that list was Thorin Oakenshield. My name is on there too. So is that of King Thranduil. If what you say is true, you've thwarted their escape, hurting them in the process. You might not realize it yet, but your part in this fight has just begun. The eye of the enemy is already upon you, whether you like it or not. You are so young in years. But that doesn't stop hate and malice. He stands up and he turns around and he looks back out into the valley as well. Faenor, I've heard tales about some of your journeys through the Mirkwood from Caranthiel and the others. What did you witness while you were in those woods?
I witnessed the spreading darkness that wasn't there even just a year beforehand. I encountered wayward elves, one named Maeglin, and I saw what he had become, and I'd seen what the shadow had done to him, how blackened it has made his heart. I would have given my life to protect my companions then. And I'm not going to let the fear of death keep me from protecting any of those that still have hope. What I encountered there, I'm grateful that I survived. I'm grateful that those I saved, even of the wayward elves who were being led astray. I'm glad that they made their way out and have been able to have a second chance.
I'm gonna have you make an insight check.
Another natural one for a 2.
He seems absent as he gazes out along, hanging on the words that you speak. He continues to speak after a moment, not looking at you, but still gazing out. Tell me of Maeglin and his followers. What transpired between you and these wayward elves?
When traveling through the Mirkwood, my companions and I were helping a trader and his son make their way from Dale across to Woodman Hall. During that time, one of our companions was tricked. The trader, Baldur. The wayward elves had taken some of the magical water that Thranduil had placed in the river and basically spiked the water that he was drinking, causing him to run off into the woods to be devoured by spiders. When we went and rescued him, they captured us. put bags on our heads and dragged us through the woods. Took us back to their camp, and Valnath and I were separated from the humans. It is during that time that Maeglin attempted to strike a child, and Jalen dived in front of the blow, and she died of her wounds. She was a bright light in this world that was extinguished by someone who just wanted to inflict pain and misery. Valnath and I were treated well enough because we were their kin. They made great use of Valnath's healing capabilities. He met Granthiel there. They were doing the best that they could. Many of the Wayward Elves didn't realize, they couldn't see quite how far Maeglin had gone, how far they had drifted away. They didn't have those experiences that I had. For all I know, if I had gone with Granthiel, I would have been one of those Wayward Elves, blindly following someone who was turning into a monster. There were good people there. And when my companions and I got the chance to flee, we did. We jumped into a cart and took off, but my friend Granthiel turned to run back to help those who had saved her, had been her family. And I just couldn't let her go alone. So I dived back into the fray, me and my wonderful dear Nympharion. And I charged straight at Savage Taller and engaged him in combat. I dove headfirst into Shadow, and I fought smart and hard to keep even these elves that had held me captive alive and to get out of there. Maeglin was devoured. And even with these people who were our former captives, I led them through to where everyone else, the rest of my companions were. And Valnath was kind enough to offer directions here, to give them a chance where they wouldn't be offered one in the Mirkwood. I'm still grateful that you allowed them to enter. It is a debt that I will owe to the end of my days. If ever there is need of me, call and I will answer.
It is good to have allies in these times of the Third Age. And he like lets out like a deep exhale and turns around and looks to you and says, "The loss of a companion is a heavy burden. I know. I've seen many of them fall. The shadow isn't something that is just prevalent in orcs. It's a corrupting force that lies. It's deception. It's blinding. Tell me, how has this death affected you?"
Jalen, she was a bit of a smart aleck. She had a way with words and a demeanor that was fitting of a lady. But she had taken her own path, much like I had. She had left behind her chance to just be a noble lady and be married off to some other lord, and had struck out on adventure to help others. She brought a light in dark times, and she was a dear friend. She taught me how to dance. She showed me that there is still joy that can be had, even though I'd been alone for so long before that. And I had only met my friends not very long before that. These people, Theodric, Valnath, Jalen, even Jessamine, they've all become a part of me. Her death, it shook me. It made me so angry. It made me want to call for vengeance. If the moment had presented itself, I would have killed Maeglin the second I could have. I would have done anything to have ended him. And in his last moments, while I did not mourn for him, he did do something noble. Perhaps the Maeglin that Caranthiel had seen was still within. Maybe the urge to save his friends and companions, his family, overtook those dark thoughts in his mind. And he sacrificed himself. But I do not mourn him. But I am glad that in that moment, I no longer had that dark urge in me, that need to end another life like that. It terrified me. But with Valineth's help, especially, I was able to keep that part of me, and not fall to that shadow the same way Maeglin had.
It's a curious thing. It's a curious thing how, even in death and strife and the way that the shadow moves, fate still has a way of making straight our crooked paths. The death of the friends that we experience, I often find myself in my time thinking of what the world would be like with them still. But the world with their sacrifice. They died for something, not needlessly. That has an impact, as much as a young hobbit did. The things that we do, the hardships we experience, it's all part of life. The plans for the Wayward Elves, as you perceived it. What was their intention for you, and for those who journeyed with you? Why did they capture you?
At that point, they were just, as Caranthiel told me, what they had done whenever they had encountered someone on the road was they would take their supplies, and then set them with just enough to survive. But anything that they could come across, they didn't kill, and when they didn't have to, they were just surviving. But when they encountered us, apparently something had changed in Maeglin. And there was talk of a deal with a king, often a Northman king. And they were going to take us and the supplies there. I think what they wanted at it from me and Valineth was to become part of those Wayward Elves. They saw us as kin, as people respecting, and like people deserving to be respected and have the chance to see things their way. I don't necessarily think what the Wayward Elves stand for is wrong, but I cannot abide by the hurting of innocence and putting oneself above others to the point where you begin to lose yourself. But I don't know much more than that.
The shadow's clearly at work. From what you've told me about the elf path, Mirkwood, your adventures, the things that Caranthiel has told me, the things I have foreseen, there is still a fight to be had, and we all must take part in it. Yes. Yes, rumor of this Lord of the North in Mirkwood. It has reached my ears, but the question remains. What does their influence on the region mean to the peoples of Rovinion? It's curious indeed, and you can tell that he's contemplating as he's begun pacing, looking up at you like every now and then. He continues, "The man who calls himself their leader is a man by the name of Vigland, a brute of a man, but not unreasonable. He even helped some of my scouts track down a party of orcs across the Grey Mountain Narrows some years back. I hope that his intent remains... I hope that I hope that his intent remains just. But this news does trouble me. Taking prisoners from the members of the Free Peoples is an act of shadow. No doubt. Best we keep an eye on him and his influence for now. But tell me, your companions, what do they make of this situation? What do they make of what you've been through?
It's been hard. I will admit the troubles that we faced, but I think that they face what we've come across with an understanding that what we're doing is not unimportant. I travel with a member of the Rohirrim. I'm an elf of Rivendell. I'm an elf of Mirkwood, and I have known men of Bree and hobbits of the Shire. I don't know exactly what their thoughts are on our adventures. I know it has changed us. But I think the fact that we can stand together as one is a testament of the change that we can make on this world. In my time since I have known Valnus, I have tried to bring together the different peoples of Middle-earth. I have pled my case to King Bard to try and establish the elves in the Mirkwood. I have spent time in the woodlands, and even got to know Ngolma, their leader, quite well, trying to help him spread prosperity for his people by extending trade operations between like the Woodman Hall and Dale and the Mirkwood. Part of my journey now is to hope that I can extend that olive branch of friendship and trade, and potentially even training of the locals into the Breelands in this shire. I don't know how successful it's going to be from the hobbits that I have met, but they seem to like the finer things and the softer things in life. But I know that I see this as necessary. I know that the path that I travel on will lead me down dark paths. And I will probably die younger than most elves get to live. But I am at peace with that. As long as I can leave behind some legacy, some brief spark of hope between the peoples of this Middle-earth. As long as I can do that, save even one life, then I will be content with my part. However it may end.
Make an insight
Just because
check for me.
just because my chapter finishes does not mean the book is written. But yes, it's like a 14.
14. There is a clear kind of vision of understanding upon his face. And he bids you, as he walks forward to you, he bids you to rise. And he says, "Your ambitions to unite the free peoples are noble. Clearly, you stand in a position to aid the woodmen in their unity. You have spoken and won the honor of Lord Bard in the Dalelands. You are son of Lindar, counselor of Lord Thranduil. In your quest against the darkness in the north, do you have new paths, new leads that you intend to follow? What are your next plans to achieve this unity that you fight for? And what evils do you seek to vanquish in this endeavor?
I want a more united peoples. Seeing that how dark, how infested with shadow the Mirkwood had become in such a brief time, opened my eyes to what could happen to any of the kingdoms that rule here on Middle Earth. With where I go from here, I don't know. Funnily enough, that's what it's always been like. For 6 years now, I've gone where I am needed. Where the path takes me, the road that I wander. But it goes where those who cannot protect themselves need help. If this Gundabad is a place that is harboring evil, then perhaps there's something I can do. Some words I can say to kings and leaders. Some force that I can help inspire. And perhaps drive this shadow far away. But whatever happens, happens. What passes will pass. I plan to be prepared for whatever may come my way.
Keep that spirit within you, Faenor. I'm going to have you make a final audience check. It is going to be a... You could either do a persuasion check or a traditions check for me.
A 10.
He looks to you and before he dismisses you, he just looks at you with those same kind of soul-piercing eyes. There's this deep consideration that's in his mind as he kind of purses his lips a little bit and lets out a breath. I sense a brewing storm in you. Reflect upon your actions, Faenor. And he smiles and then looks carefully. What has driven you as of late?
As of late, defending those I care about. It might seem small in the grand scheme of things, defending those dear to me. But I think it's enough. Not everyone needs a grand song sung about them or a grand journey to kill a dragon. But if I can do just enough, then I'll be content. My hope is to one day, clear away the stigma that follows my namesake, Faenor. Forger of the Silmarils. But I hope that one day my name is sung in tales and songs, but I don't yearn for those things. I just want to live in a world where people are free to make the decisions that they want to make. Where neighbors can travel, where neighboring kingdoms can travel through each other's lands with comfort and ease. A world that is safe for everyone, mortal and aging alike. A land not cast in shadow. A land where those who do fall prey to it are given the chances to redeem themselves. When Valnath and I win the Woodman lands, we were invited to a folk moot, and Angulma's own son arrived at this meeting. And he was very clearly affected by shadow. He'd been through so much darkness, so much peril in his life, so much pain. And while he seemed to want to rule with power and might, and that was all he knew. Still, we gave him the chance to redeem himself, the chance to find himself as who he once was. My hope is that any who are corrupted by shadow get that chance. Much as when those we love, like my own mother, the shadow grips a little bit too tightly, and they must depart from this Middle Earth. I hope everyone gets that opportunity.
He pauses for a moment in contemplative silence before addressing you. His voice, when he does speak up, is both stern and compassionate. His voice echoes the wisdom of ages. Faenor, I have lived many lifetimes of men here on this Middle Earth. I have seen powers rise and fall, friends die before my very eyes. While yes, we are immortal beings, we are not free from the hardships of the world. Whether your tongue weaves tales of truth or remains silent, the shadow of our hearts cannot hide. Well, they cannot hide from the eyes that have witnessed the turning of ages. I perceive the tendrils of the world, the tendrils of darkness entwining on the spirits of the people of this world. It's a path all too familiar and perilous in my eyes. I see a growing vengeance in those that are around, in the hearts of men, elves, dwarves, heroes. It's a road paved with good intentions, yet it leads to only an abyss of despair. Remember this, Faenor. Those who live by the sword are ever tempted to draw it, especially when their will is thwarted or their honor feels slighted. This is the beginning of a treacherous journey. As corruption spreads, it taints the spirit. Gone unchecked, your behavior will gradually worsen, leading to more extreme and violent reactions to even the simplest of slights against you. And he kind of downcasts his eyes as he continues. The first sign of this is brutality. Be careful, Faenor, the path you tread. You will find yourself, if you rely too much on the blade, if you rely too much on vengeance, you will find yourself reacting violently to provocations, exhibiting little restraint under duress. This will evolve, small at first, but it eventually evolves into cruelty. I've seen it myself, in many men, many of my own kind. This will turn into cruelty, a chilling numbness that will creep over the hearts of you. The suffering of others will cease to stir empathy within you. Instead, a sinister desire for you to relish the pain of others will take root, driving you to the needless savagery against your foes. This cruelty unchecked will soon morph into murderous intent. Killing, once a means of dire necessity, may start to seem more a natural solution to obstacles, or worse, a means to assert your will. But the most perilous stage is when spitefulness grows in you. You will find yourself seeking to repay real and imagined wrongs with viciousness and malice. Even the smallest provocations may turn you sour and bitter, not just towards foes, but towards your friends who once stood by your side.
Faenor, like while he was talking, was thinking back even to not that long ago when Nim had been really badly injured, and like engulfed in flame himself, savagely beat that goblin to death. What could have been a quick, clean kill was just the first time he'd experienced such overwhelming rage, like a need not just to kill, but to I guess similar to with what Maeglin, like that was different. That felt colder somehow, more animosity rather than blind intent to just kill things. And ponders what Elrond's saying, and his response is, "I hope that time never comes for me. I hope that I'm able to stay true and to be a beacon of hope. But I do, if that ever does befall me, I just hope that there are those around me and those that have been inspired by me will see to it that I don't harm. And if I turn away from the light, I hope that there is strength enough that it will not hurt others."
The path of vengeance is a spiral. Small at first, and it slowly trickles in. It leads only downwards, Faenor, and even the brightest light can be extinguished in this. Remember, it's not strength of the body that wins battles, but strength of the spirit. Guard your heart against this descent, for the fall into shadow is subtle, and the climb back into the light is arduous. He shakes his head, and he says, "You're welcome to stay for as long as you desire. I know you have business westward, but consider my home your home for the time being. Welcome, Faenor, to Imladris."
Thank you. Are all conversations with you this intense?
When you've lived as long as I have, I've had a lot of time to ponder things that very few care to speak of, or are uncomfortable of speaking of. I seek truth. I seek justice.
No, but it's refreshing. Don't get me wrong, it's refreshing. But yeah, I just want to know if I see you around, if it's always going to be like this.
Let's hope not. Let's hope next time we meet, we don't have to dwell on sorrows. We don't have to dwell on the evils of the world. But we can celebrate. Celebrate life. Celebrate the small victories. What say you?
That sounds perfect. May I ask a question of you?
Indeed.
You have known Valneth, his mother, from what I understand, for quite a long time. Yes. What do you think of Valneth's journey to find his father? Because I'm not quite sure if he's
that's driven him. But what are your concerns? You've traveled with him as a companion.
I know the lengths that I would go to find my father. I'm just worried that maybe he hasn't. I know while he has considered that his father may have perished, I do not think he's come to terms with it. Valneth is strong, so incredibly strong, much stronger than when I first met him. And I only bid that you be proud of everything that he has done. That's more or less on his own, away from his kin. On our journey here, he told me that he plans to stay, at least for now. And it weakens my heart and my will to know that I will be leaving behind such a close person to me. And I know that while he will be safe here, I can't be there to look out for him now. I need someone else to be. I can't rush in to danger ahead of him and take it on headlong. I can't take those risks to keep his light that I have seen so pure. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were.
My thoughts on Valineth have always been, until he proves me otherwise, he seeks truth, I think, above anything. Yes, finding his father and the quest to do so. Well, maybe one day it might yield the reward of being reunited as a family. I also know the dangers that it poses. Valineth is wise, yet still so young. I'm curious to see, after speaking with him, how his time abroad has changed him. He's incredibly gifted. He's very incredibly gifted when it comes to, well, the information you can glean from books, lore, scripture. I'm happy to see that even in that, he's been able to make friends, companions. And between us, I hope he's gained a little bit of spunk.
But believe me, I managed to convince him to eat a frog. Don't let him know that I told you that. But I managed to convince him to eat a frog, and to try new things, and to drink ale, and I threw him in a river. All things that I don't think he would have been able to do. But
Some say that I dislike the company of dwarves. It's a strange thought. Us elves are long-lived, and oftentimes we stick to our ways. But it is the greatest friendships that I have built have been with those of the other races of the free peoples. Their ways, their traditions, they seem to spark something in me. I just hope that Valineth's journeys beyond, he can continue to open his heart up to new experiences, companionships, but most importantly, so that he looks up from above those books which he clings onto so dear, and he sees the world around him. He sees the people. I don't worry for Valineth. Valineth will be fine. He's smart. He can find his way out of situations. He has survived thus far. If fate is to be on his side to where he finds his dad, I hope it's a beautiful reunion. I sure know that I put my resources into the search as well. My sons Eladin and Elro here. They've been hard at work.
believe me, I want nothing more than for Valineth to find Morbin. I worry that if he doesn't find the thing that he's looking for, the answers he needs, that will stain him. That shadow will be too much for him.
But it's as we spoke. I think it is and this could just be perhaps wisdom from an old elf. One that has been through a lot. It is those moments of shadow when we're confronted. It is when we're challenged. And we succeed. That we grow. He's lived his entire life here in Imladris, and everything has been easy for him. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but he's been shielded from the shadow. This is the first real time he's ever experienced it. Whether it's the loss of a companion, witnessing something you can't even imagine, it will change you. But fate has a way of making evil deeds write its way into the grand history of the way that it's supposed to be. Whenever I feel down, whenever I feel despair, this is a comforting thought. A thought rooted in truth of our creation. That no matter what, good will prevail. Even if many have to die to fight it. Even if it ends my life, the life of our kin. Someday, the shadow will be dispelled. And when we are free from the mortal bonds of this world, our legacies will continue. It'll continue to inspire. It might be death, it might be a lot of despair. But that is the moment in which we grow. When we're presented with a decision and we choose for good. Sure. We can have time for despair. We can have time for sadness. But the sacrifice that we make for the good of others, that has lasting impacts that will ripple throughout the world, something that Shadow cannot do. Shadow corrupts, and it can lead those astray. But as long as we find that peace within ourselves and we don't lose ourselves to the shadow, and it's just one choice at a time to choose good, it makes it that much easier to adapt that as a habit. Little by little, even in the midst of despair, we have something eternal to hold on to. Love and hope.
Something for me to think on.
Something for me in all my years to ponder as well. It's a mystery, isn't it? The unexplained things of the world. But it is an honor to see how it works and how overcoming shadow has affected people around. Even in sadness, there is room for joy. We just need to look for it.
One more thing. This is very important.
Ask away.
I'm assuming I'm going to be meeting Valinith's mom. Please tell me she doesn't tell constant puns. Please, I have no idea where he got it from. Please, I can't. If that's what I have to deal with, I don't think I'll be able to handle it.
That is a trait of Morbeth. You do not need to worry.
Thank God.
He's very much his father's son. In more ways than I think he knows.
Okay. Mentally preparing myself. Sweet. But no. All I can say is I hope you really are as proud of him as I am, if not more. And I know you'll speak to him and you'll be able to learn more of what he's been through, but I am incredibly proud of who he's become, even in this brief period.
He's a good lad. And I know he'll continue to become great, just as you will.
Only hope.
Please send Valinith in. You are more than welcome to be able to join us for dinner. I'm sure it's nearly dinner time. Lindir is a magnificent chef.
That sounds lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be seeing you around.
And
Oh.
Faenor turns and leaves.
You make your way out, again, not through any specific threshold, but you walk out into the main hallway, and you see Valineth. He is deep in conversation with Lindir. From what you can glean, he is just every little thing that, like, he's gone through. He has his, notebook open, and he's just like, look at it, I learned, like, humans are animals. No, I crossed that out. Actually, that's not true. And Lindir is just kind of just going through and seeing all of that, and he looks up to you, almost kind of like a puppy dog, like, just, like, completely innocent, and he goes, oh, how did it go?
Faenor walks up and he gives him a big hug.
Oh, now. Not to get all sentimental. And you can sense that he started to get a little bit emotional, too.
Yeah. No, it went well. Just gave me a lot to think about.
Oh, that is the effect he has on many. Can't tell you the amount of emotional stress that the Lord Elrond has put me through.
Yes, no wonder you look so old for your age. Anyway, Linda, do you know where
every
my
wrinkle
friend...
that is thousands of years or hundreds of years of knowledge? Huzzah!
Huzzah. I hope you know, Valineth, that when we part ways, I'm taking that. That's mine now. Huzzah's mine.
Huzzah is for everybody.
Before we know it, it's going to be spread across the entire kingdom. A war cry for the ages.
And let us never forget it. Huzzah! As he just, like, goes and he, like, just walks,
strolls
like,
up.
yeah, just walks out and is like, Lord Elrond, I have returned. And you see him do, like, a deep bow, like a big, like, and,
like head almost touching the ground kind of thing.
And you can only see him, so, like, his butt is, like, doing this thing, and you, as you see. And Lindir, he says, he has been a joy that these halls have not seen for quite a few years. How did you deal with him day in and day out?
It was hard some days, but he's well worth the effort. My
Thank you
God,
for taking care
the
of
amount
him.
of puns. There were times where it was almost too much to bear.
Stay out of the joke side of our library. Some of those are quite old, generations
Oh my
old.
God, you have books of jokes.
We have books on everything.
Oh, no wonder he knows so many. Oh, I should have thought of it beforehand. Did he tell you about the whole humans and animals thing?
Yes, he did. That is,
no.
Well, let's just say I think he will be growing in wisdom from here on out.
Yes. No. He's wonderful. I'll be sad the day that I depart without him. But it suits him here.
It does.
I can just feel it.
And while you are here, feel free to enjoy everything that Imladris has at your disposal.
Of course. Would you perhaps happen to know where my friend Caranthio at this moment?
Usually, if there is someone to be found...
Is there a garden, a particular garden that might have more plants from the Mirkwood, perhaps?
You see, that is difficult. We have many gardens, and each one more beautiful than the next. However, if you are to find someone who is maybe visiting the place that people gather, you might want to make your way into the Hall of Fire. It's not what you think it is. It's a cozy hearth, beautiful views.
Sounds cool as. Where is this?
If you will follow me. And so he leads you. You were all the way back here on the back porch. He leads you back down through the central hall, and you guys take a right immediately down, and you see that there are kind of like these like sliding doors on either side, that kind of similar to like a Japanese shoji like door,
Yep.
on either side that kind of separate these rooms. But at the very end of this hall, it opens up into a big great hall, and you can see that there are a number of people there, elves, and a couple of what look to be men, some young, some less so. But sitting at the far end, you see a familiar face, and she's just sitting there looking at the fire.
Is Nornia or anything here present, or no?
Nornir is not, from what you can see.
At the Faenor kind of goes, yeah, he was a wandering spirit. If he's not, he might not even be in Imadris. But Faenor, standing from the door, is going to do a bird whistle of a song, of the song whistle of a bird that you probably only find in the Merc.
Immediately, she just like raises her head. You can see the smile across her face as she's like listening, and she turns her head towards the door, and she just like stares at you. Just she slowly gets up, and in literally a matter of moments, she just sprints towards you and
Wow, a
grabs
lack
you
of
and, like,
decorum.
You have no idea how worried I've been, Faenor.
It's okay. I only went and battled like a bunch of goblins and orcs.
Are you
and,
serious? And she like puts herself,
and
puts
I went
herself
to
away.
yeah, and I'm like, and I went and partook in like a meeting of like the woodman like leaders and everything, a Folkmoot. Yeah, you know, I traveled back in time. That was horrifying.
What?
Yeah.
Faenor.
Yeah,
Faenor. I'm so happy to see you. But and she like she looks to you and says, "How long has it been? It feels like yesterday or years."
Hasn't even been a full year. Nope. 9 months.
She laughs, and like the worry on her face kind of fades. And she says, "That is just like you to go through so much in such a little amount of time. Speaking of time, what did you say about time travel?" And she
Well, oh my
begins
gosh.
to just
Oh my gosh.
question you over and over about all of the things that you've experienced and what
Yeah,
you've gone
and-
through. She hangs on every one of your words as you do so. She's
Yeah.
just like, "What? I can't believe it. Goblin tunnels? Oh, come on. Okay, you gotta be honest with me. How do they compare to the tunnels of home? Are they a little bit different? Probably."
Oh, they're trash. Oh, they're trash. Imagine like a large badger dug a hole and then it half caved in. That's like a goblin hole.
I'm sure it smells too, doesn't it?
Yeah, not entirely sure what though, the mixture of things. Not entirely pleasant.
Probably
But
soot, poo. I don't know.
I
All
like
I
to not
know
think about it too much.
is that you're alive. And look at you. Look at you. How did you make it here?
Well, with my natural gifts for tracking and traversing the landscape, I was completely hopeless. Falneth led me here.
Don't worry, I was hopeless as well. We were just wandering these hills, even with the very clear directions that Valineth gave us. Let's just say I'm happy to have you here again. How long do you plan to stay?
I plan to be here for the winter, but then as soon as the ice melts and the snow begins to melt away, I'll be on my way again. Off across west, off to the Breelands. I have an important journey ahead of me.
We have a lot of catching up to do, don't we?
You bet we do.
She smiles and she says, "Well, I've got a wonderful place. This is my favorite spot next to the fire. It's warm, but not too hot. You can still feel the breeze as it comes through on either side. I don't know what it is about this fire, but it reminds me of home."
And I'll sit with her then. while they're talking. Probably just like looking into the fire for a lot of the time. Yeah, like taking off his gloves, warming them by the flame. Um, Telling her of like the parts of the conversation that he just had with Elrond, and like more making observations about. He's a very wise elf. It gave me a lot to think about.
To be honest, he intimidates me. He's a good lord. I can tell there's an agelessness to him. Let me just say I miss you.
I appreciated how blunt, well, not blunt, but how direct he was with how he spoke. It is refreshing after all the time in Thranduil's halls where everyone speaks in riddles and says one thing but means another, and it's too topsy turvy all over itself for me. You knew I couldn't sit still for very long.
I will say this, Faenor. One of the things that I've perhaps missed the most about home, and I've missed this for years, is just being able to feel the wind on my face. And have somebody to enjoy it with. I've been alone for so long. Maybe not completely alone. But here in this place, I think the other elves, they cater to me, but I don't think they understand me completely. It's good to have kindred spirit here.
What became of the other wayward elves? What became of Norni?
Well, some of them are still here. And I don't think you would be too surprised, but Nornir has gotten himself, let's just say recruited by Eladin and Elro here. You know of them. They're
Yeah.
Elrond's sons.
Of course he would.
There's matters up north that need attending to, and let's just say they've made their way into Wilderland, and he's serving as their guide. I don't know the ins and outs about what Lord Elrond desires, but have you seen some of the elves that are here, Faenor? Elrond's impressive, but have you seen some of these elves? And she begins to go in to all kinds of stories. She's like, if you go down, it doesn't matter what time of the day, but there's a training ground here. And Lord Glorfindel is down there. I've never seen someone fight so gracefully, and everybody is just enamored by him and what he can do, and his presence. He is not real. He's clearly of the divine, and she begins to just like go on and on. Like I think of like if like someone's like talking about, like I think of like my wife talking about like Henry Cavill. Like she is just like gushing over this
No,
guy.
Faenor's like while she's talking, he's like, yes, Glorfindel. Yes, no, great warrior.
And there's plenty for you to meet if you plan on spending lots of time here. I do very much recommend that you take the time to get to know your surroundings, all of the people here. Clearly you've met Lindir, Lord Elrond. Glorfindel is good. Perhaps Eladin and Elro here shall return at some point soon, but one person that I've really come to feel comfortable with is Lord Eristor. He's the chief advisor to Lord Elrond, and he works very closely, actually, with someone who maybe we both know. She lets me refer to her as Eloe. It's Faenor's mother. healing that goes on here. I can't even believe. Sure, like I've learned how to use herbs and make poultices and heal wounds, remove infections, but it's magical what they can do. I don't want to leave, but at the same time, I know that the world is calling, but there's so much that I can learn here that I can bring back to our peoples. If they're willing to accept me, that is. And she looks to you.
While I have not received letters back myself, I have sent letters off to my father, saying that I did encounter you while on the road. I did not speak of the company in which you were kept, but you're a good person, and he would vouch for you. You're like a daughter to him. I'm sure they would welcome you back, especially if you had someone like Elrond's blessing.
Lindar's like very strict uncle.
Yeah.
But I love him. I love you. And she looks away, and you could tell that she's like deeply red blushing. Like she just is like, what she just said is just like, but can we just enjoy this moment together?
Of course. And Faenor's gonna like put an arm around her and pull her close while they sit by the fire. And he's gonna do another bird whistle, of a different bird this time.
And she begins she begins to start kind of doing like her elf magic, as she does, and she says, "I think it's about time that you maybe learned how to do some of these things. Don't you think? You've got time. You've got a teacher."
I haven't really needed them before.
Yes, but you saw how.
What are you gonna do next? Put me in robes and not cut my hair?
Well,
for reference, Faenor will very much be wearing robes while he's you know, it's just one of the few things he's like, yeah, like, why not?
Well, one change at a time, right? And she just kind of like looks like jokingly at you, but she says, there's more uses for this than you understand. And she goes ahead and she like pulls like one of the sticks that have not been burned yet from the fire, and she takes the elf flame and she begins to like put it on this, and she's like, you understand that this is actually hot. This could be useful, don't you think?
Perhaps in burning things more efficiently.
That's not what I mean.
Excellent, yes. Teach me the magics.
Of course I say this in a place called the Hall of Fire.
When Linda told me that, when Lindy said that, oh my god, I needed to see this place.
Well, now you see it, and now class is in session. So you better buckle up, buddy. We're going to go on a long, bumpy ride of this. It's not easy. You need to keep your focus, okay?
If there's anything I'm good at, it's... Yeah, well, I would say remaining focused, but that's mostly when I'm stabbing something.
Faenor.
All right. Show me what you've got.
Okay. First, you have to quit that whistling. Maybe later, but... And then she begins to start to like explain everything. And during your time here, you make your way down, and you spend a decent amount of time with her, but just like exploring the grounds just around in general. And as the winter seasons begin to change, you altogether lose time. You see Valinith from time to time, and you meet some of these incredible elves, and you know exactly what Caranthiel meant when she was the way that she was explaining Glorfindel. This is an elf straight out of Legends, and just how sure he is, how just swift and strong he is. Like this actually, by looking at him, just his sheer presence, gives you hope that there is no possible way that evil could ever win. And as you are here in Rivendell, that's something that begins to start to seep out of you. So one of the mechanical effects about being in Rivendell is while you are here, so it only applies to when you're here, you remove all points of shadow and all effects of shadow. It becomes 0, including permanent points of shadow. However, as you begin to depart to make your way towards the Breelands, Caranthiel, it's probably starting to get into probably late winter, early February. And she says, I wish you not to go. But, Faenor, if I could just accompany you a little bit further, I would love to see what is west from here. When we return and you take the caravan back, we'll see what I can do. But I think I have a little left to learn here.
Of course. While I am in Rivendell during this time,
Yes.
is there anywhere that I would be able to find like some really good wood? Like, since I've seen that crystalline like wood that was like in that door, it's Faenor's had an idea.
One thing
And
that
he's
you've
looking for-
discovered
yeah.
about this wood is you've had some time to look it over. And in fact, this crystalline wood is not wood itself. There have actually been small gemstones that have been ingrained into this wood. That is what makes it shine. It is a holly wood, but it's some kind of material, probably dwarven in make. You're not really a stone, right? So it's kind of difficult to know, but that is what makes it glitter. It's not the wood itself.
Okay, with his time here, like, Faenor would probably find some Hollywood, and he's going to also, with some of the other wood that I have collected while we were in the Mirkwood, he is going to layer and laminate out bits of wood into a block, and he is going to carve a deer out. And when he leaves here to go to the Breelands, he stops by Valnus' house. And unable to actually bring himself to be able to say goodbye to him just yet, he leaves it out the front and departs Rivendell without saying goodbye.
You do so. And as you continue onward, Igor and the Breeland boys, they're with you. And Igor at this point has begun to be the guide as you make your way out of the Valley of Imladris. But as you, at the beginning of the path of the Greenway, you actually see a familiar face at the start of that path, and it is Valnith. He looks to you and he says, Faenor, I knew today was going to be the day you were going to leave. And he gives you a big hug and he says, but you're forgetting something important. And he takes a backpack off his bag back and he
took notes.
No, this is Jalen's stuff. Everything's accounted for. I've made sure of it. In fact, I've organized it accordingly based off of the color combinations. I had my mother help me with it. It's beautiful. And he also pulls out from his own bag the sword in a scabbard, and he hands it over to you and says, may the road lead you ever onward and onward, Faenor. I don't know what lies ahead for you out there, but I'm sure I will be seeing you. Make sure this finds a safe home. It's a very impressive blade. And he hands it over.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I was planning on leaving without saying goodbye, but I know I'll see you again soon.
Oh,
hopefully.
pish posh. It's until we meet again, isn't it?
Huzzah to that.
Huzzah to that! See, I'm rubbing off on you, Faenor. I like this.
Oh, look, promise me if next time we see each other I have long hair, you won't obsess over it.
Is that a promise?
I can't promise anything.
Neither can I.
But there is a place for
Huzzah!
tradition.
Indeed, Caranthiel, you take great care of my buddy Faenor. If he comes back and he has long hair, well, that'll be really quick.
Have I learned actually any of the magic since I have been?
You did. So your
Yeah,
Yule phase has
yeah.
become very magical. It's a magical
Yeah.
experience. A good Christmas, I guess. Good
Yeah.
New Year.
I just want to be able to like in front of him. I'm like, actually, speaking of tradition, and just like a little flash of fire on my hands.
What is
I
this
am
magic?
now magic.
No.
Yes.
No. What did you do?
Yep.
As Caranthiel just kind of like shrugs as you start making way.
Yeah.
If I start seeing smoke signals, I know where to find you. Don't burn this place down.
Well, I now have fire on command.
No. No.
And you aren't around to stop me.
Make good choices as you make your way off into the distance. Your journey from here on out is very damp. All of a sudden, no longer are you in typical winter weather. In fact, it's become stormy, almost kind of the beginning of spring weather. And Igor, he mentions to you that specifically the Trollshaws are known for this. As he mentions this, he talks about all of like the different regions. As long as we stay on the path, it's going to be good. Not a lot of people traverse the Greenway, but the Trollshaws specifically is not a place that you want to stop for too long, as it does have a namesake for trolls coming down from the Etten Moors in the north. You walk for about probably 3 days through this area until you eventually come into a new country. You leave kind of these big hills and like trees and forests all over the place and woods, and you come into this area that is just absolute rolling hills. In this area, this rain seems to be ceased, but it seems constantly clouded. You have now made your way into what is referred to as basically the Northern Downs. It is not quite the Barrow Downs or anything like that, but it just hills upon hills, and you can see that there's fog that comes in from all over the place, very reminiscent of the Misty Mountains, but it definitely seems more sinister. This is something that the Bree boys are very aware of. They pretty much tell you, we need to be super careful and get through this as fast as possible. Nobody's got time for it. And you're probably in this area, and they also refer to it as the Watch Hills. As you continue onwards, probably about another 3 to 4 days in this region, you see rising up above you an enormous tower. It's weathered with age, and it's one place that offers no sense of hospitality. This is a place known as Weathertop. An ancient tower that belonged to the Kingdom of the North, and it stands very impressive just in the middle of nowhere, with just views on everything. And eventually, as you make your way into the Breelands, continuing up the Greenway, it's about another day of travel before it's nighttime when you get to Bree. Rain is falling heavy all around you, and spring has really begun to set in heavy. This is a place that doesn't get a ton of snow, at least as far south as you are, but it has constant deluges. You make your way over to the gate, and a man opens it up and says, "What's your business here?"
What was actually Jalen's last name?
Grinfold.
I'm here to see the Grinfold family. I have news about their daughter.
About time we get some enlightenment on this. And you see the door open up, and you see this not crotchety but very old-sounding guy. He looks to you, and you are like the same height. He's very kind of like hunched over, and he looks at you, and he has this lantern that he has in your face and says, "An elf? We don't get many of you around here. But that's neither here nor there. If you're looking for anything, make your way up to the Prancing Pony. Just keep following this all the way until it turns the corner. If you want us to meet the Grinfolds, you just keep on following that as it turns over to the eastern quarter. That's where all the rich folk live. They're there. You'll notice they have a black stone house that has a nice lavish garden. They specifically have cedar trees in their front lawn, and a few, how do I explain? Purple roses. It's hard to miss.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And actually, for his troubles, I'm gonna like hand him like 2 copper, just for like giving me a quick rundown of the place.
Indeed, thank you. I'm always here if you need anything. And with that, you continue up the road. It is a hill. Bree itself is built on this very tall, wide-based hill. This is bigger than anything that you've seen thus far, as like the sheer expanse of it. It's not super tall, but you can see the lights of the town, even through the rain, descend up to the top. And so if we're looking here, you come in through this main gate up the greenway, and you begin to walk, and it's pretty barren until you start to hit the center of the town. On your left is the Prancing Pony, a very lively place where all kinds of people are chatting. You continue on past that all the way up the road until you find yourself into a neighborhood where there are many manors, big mansions and whatnot. And I'm going to have you make a... while Corinthial is with you during this whole time, but some of the other ones have dropped off, made their way to the stables at the Prancing Pony, and you and Corinthial make your way upwards into this fancy area. I'm going to have you make a perception check.
I got a 17.
You're able to find the one place that stands out with black stone, basically fixtures and wood that, or not wood, a stone that makes up this giant manor, and you can spot the purple roses that are in the front. You make your way through the front gates as they creak open. You make your way to the front door and you knock heavily on it, to which a woman does answer, and she says, "Yes, how may I help you?"
Is this the residence of one Jalen Grinfall?
It is indeed.
Who do I have the pleasure of speaking?
My name is Rebecca. I'm the maid of the house. It is such a late time. Could you come back tomorrow? The master's at work.
It's quite urgent.
What is this concern?
I would rather deliver that news to the master and mistress of the house.
I'll be 1 second with you. And she closes the door, and you wait for probably what is about 5 minutes, and the rain continues to fall.
Corinthial knows, like, Faenor's, like, hopping from foot to foot. Like, he's really anxious about this. Like, he's about to deliver some very bad, soul-crushing news to this family.
She rubs her hand on your back, and she says, "It's okay, we've been over this. It's going to be fine. You're doing the right thing." And she's continuously, like, reassuring you as he does. Probably about 5 minutes pass, and she comes to the front and says, "You may come in. We have the parlor right over here if you want to go ahead and have yourselves a seat. The missus will be right with you."
Thank you. And Faenor's going to, like, take off his, like, coat and, like, kind of, like, hang it over, like, a railing or something out, so he's not tracking water into the house or anything.
"Oh, don't you worry yourselves here." And she goes and she pulls out, like, this stack of towels, and she begins to kind of, like, wipe your shoes and everything and whatnot, and kind of, like, dry you off. She hands you a clean one for your hair and, like, for Grandiel as well. Says, "If you'd follow me, would you like some tea?"
I'm good, but she takes hers with the sugar.
"Well, if you would wait here, the lady of the house will be right with you." And not too long passes as you sit in this very finely decorated room. It's got very lavish kind of like fixtures and chandeliers, but also this like perfectly brand new upholstery that has been put on kind of like the chairs. You sit there and it's like very awkward because it's oddly quiet. You see that there's a man who looks to be a butler. He's moving to and from, and he comes and he has a seat and he's like, "Some tea with sugar," and he gives it to to drink for Corinthial, and she takes it and she gladly starts sipping. And with the maid Rebecca comes in a very very tired-looking woman, and she sits down and she says, "Elves? I've never made the acquaintance of elves. What can I do for you?"
Does she look very much like Jalen?
The eyes are unmistakable.
Faenor is going to walk forward and drop down on a knee in front of her and is going to say, I am sorry that I come to you bearing grim news.
What could this be about? Maybe I should be sitting for this.
Is there somewhere more private that we could talk? Maybe perhaps away from the maids? Caranthiel, if you could wait out here.
Is this something that my husband needs to know?
Yes, it is.
She nods and she basically asks the butler, "Forgar, please, could you get my husband out of his office? He seems serious."
Faenor is standing.
Forgar, he nods and he makes his way on the opposite side of the house. You hear a knocking on the door and says, "Sir, it's important." We don't hear anything in response, but she says, "Please, come with me." And she leads you over to kind of like this small kind of like alcove. It's kind of like a breakfast nook, but it's shut off from everything, and it's kind of like in the front windowsill of the room. But it's in a separate room altogether than where Caranthiel and the Ripper are. And she says,
Yeah.
"Can I get you anything? I'm afraid we weren't expecting any guests, so we don't really have anything hot."
No, I am sorry to intrude. I actually only made it into Bree tonight, actually. I traveled here from the Mirkwoods and from Dale.
Sounds so far. Goodness, you must be tired. And she like fluffs a pillow and like kind of like puts it like behind you and says, Don't mind my husband. He's very busy at work these days." And you hear out of the kind of the back room, different the room that Forgar went, and you hear, "I said all right, I'll be right there." And you hear a slamming of a door, and you see crossing the threshold I'm gonna actually have you make a perception check. There's like kind of like a small kind of little doorway as crossing in front of the doorway.
It's a 10.
10. You see the structure of a woman. It's unmistakable. She has long black hair and almost kind of this pale white skin, and she has basically like black like leather get up and kind of like a cloak too that's been drawn, and she's currently putting up. She looks into you and she gives you a nod, and she leaves out the front door. As Rebecca opens the door, you can see her going off into the distance, and probably about 10 seconds later, Stefan Grinfold, he makes his way in, and he is doesn't look super old, but his face looks hard, and he kind of looks coldly at you, and he says, "Winfrey, move over," as he sits down and says, "I'm a busy man, you see. What could I do for you?"
So just so I know, is there like a table or anything that is
Yeah,
here?
so there's like it's kind of like a circular table. Two
Yeah,
of them are sitting
yeah.
at one end and you're on the other.
Faenor will have been standing, and he's going to place his pack on the table, and while they are covered still, like he's going to take off a shield and a sword, and he's going to bring them to the end of the table and then unwrap them.
What is this?
I was a companion of your daughters.
Aw.
I knew Jalen, and it breaks my heart to be the one to bear you the bad news. Jalen passed on one of our adventures.
All of a sudden you hear Winfrey. She goes... And she begins to kind of like weep quietly as she's like wiping the tears from her eyes, and she looks over to Stefan, and he's looking coldly into your eyes, and he says, What do you mean adventures? She left over a year ago. We haven't heard hide nor hair from her. Rumor has it that she made her way east of the Misty Mountains, chasing some dream to become. What do you mean she died?
Allow me to tell you the tale from its beginning. That way, you can appreciate how it ended.
He leans back. Go ahead.
When I first encountered Jalen, it was in Dale, during the Festival of the Five Armies. During that time, she proved herself a champion, earning a seat in King Bard's own halls. To sit and make merry. She taught me how to dance. We won awards and accolades. Spoke to kings. Budding romances. Though she didn't feel the same way about him. We helped people. We helped children who were in bad places get a second chance at life. And as much as it's a very abbreviated version, he's like telling all the stories of everything from the melee to helping all those kids who are thieves, and even like the time they spent together in the winter, just like the closeness and the bond that they shared. The times on the roads in the Mirkwood, he describes like what transpired, what passed, like the journeys, the giant spiders, the bravery that she showed, putting her life on the line for others more times than he can remember, standing by his side, coming close, and then when he draws towards the end of the tale, Jalen was a bright light. The journeys were hard on her, and they left their mark. But now we come to its end. Captured while on the road. Jalen perished defending the life of a child. A boy no more than 9. An elf striking out in anger went to hurt this child, and she stopped him, taking the blow herself. That night, Jalen died. I hope there is some comfort in knowing that the elf that did this to her himself died quite horrifically, devoured by a giant spider. And I'm glad that he is dead. She never completed her journey. Her wish to find Bree and so long. But she was proud of where she was from. And I'm glad to have known her. And I carry that light that she carried with me. I can tell you where she is buried. I buried her myself. It's not easy. But I don't think she would have changed it. I don't think she would have avoided that blow if it meant the death of that child. Pure light. Gentle soul. Wily and like just stubborn, but smart. I'm sorry that I couldn't be here bringing your daughter home. All I can offer is these that were once hers. This sword, this shield. So that you might pass them on.
He looks to you, dead in the eyes. The Winfrey is just beside herself. She's just like looking to you, just like weeping. And
Faenor's probably crying as
Mhm.
well. Like, not like racking sobs or anything, but like tears freely flowing on his face while he's been telling these stories.
Stefan kind of reclined. He's been looking quite stoically at you the whole time, kind of like a father who's like hearing like like his daughter's boyfriend speak to him for the first time, like one of those like
Yeah,
shotgun wedding situations. He's been kind of
yeah.
like looking at you stoically, and he says, "What you say is true." He looks down at the sword and shield, and he picks up the sword, and he kind of just like unsheathes it a little bit, and he looks at it, puts it back, and he puts it down on the table, and he kind of like does this whole thing. He stands up, and he's just kind of like, damn it, damn it, damn it! As he goes over and he just like kicks the table, and like everything kind of shifts. The shield falls onto the ground, and he like slams his fist against the wall, and he says, "This is not how it's supposed to be. This is not how it's supposed to end for us!" Damn it. And he slams his hand, and as you can hear that, you can hear an audible crack, and there's blood that begins to smear against, and he just leaves the room. And Winfrey looks at you and she says, "I'm sorry." And that's where we're going to end our session.
Sweet. Okay. Whoa. Big session, but I'm glad that all of it happened.
All of it happened, even if it is late. It's all good, though. Thank you so much for sticking around. If we want to go quickly before we gets too late, if you want to go ahead and give me your thoughts on the session, I'll give you quickly my thoughts too, and then we'll dive right into closing this thing off.
Yeah. I think it was very interesting. I liked the session. Don't get me wrong; it was very, very good. Being able to break it down into like the main points, I suppose, is like talking with Valineth and like trying to express how Faenor comes to terms with that idea. Like their group has only ever gotten smaller once before, and that was through great heartache and sorrow. Um, and he's like Fainor was thinking about all the time that he spent away while he was in the woodlands, like, and now he's having to leave this friend behind again, not knowing when he'll see him next, but knowing that it's important to him and being able to like reconcile that within himself of like he's going to respect what Valineth's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He just hopes that one day that if like he knows that one day if Valineth ever needs help, that he will come. If he calls, he'll come. And I really enjoyed talking to Elrond too, being able to have these other thoughts, these things that have been developing from talking with Valineth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but 1,000 of that, like giving him those contemplative things, thinking back on his own rage and these things that he's not really been struggling with so far, but have been like peeking its head
Mm-hmm.
and really giving proper thought to it and being able to experience that. Meeting Krenthiel again was very fun as well. I like the little details, like the bird whistle that I did, and it got her attention. I like being able to learn the beginnings of Elven magic
Mm-hmm.
as well. That's going to be very like fun in the future. He's just going to walk up to Theodric and go, "Behold," and see what his response is. He's like, "You're not the only one with weird things that happen to you anymore." You have weird dreams? I can summon stuff.
I
I
can
can
summon
conjure.
flame.
Yes.
That's great.
Um, but and then yeah, very emotionally charged coming to meet Jalen's family.
I wish we could have
And
dedicated a little bit more time to it, the time that
yeah,
it was due,
yeah,
but alas, such is
really
life.
depended on where I spent my time in the Yule phase. If I'd been here,
Mm.
if I'd just very briefly stopped by Rivendell, it would have been longer at Jalen's house. But
And
yeah,
normally
I'm
in these kind of situations, we can let them go for longer, but because this is like
yeah,
the one shot, and
yeah,
we're not like as a whole party like picking
yeah,
right back up from where we're leaving up. Sometimes
yeah,
some of those things have to kind of be packaged up and rushed. But the nice thing is
Yeah.
you can kind of take whatever you want from that,
Yes.
going back into the next session and be like, this is what happened, or like we could even
Mm.
talk like one-on-one about like what actually transpired, what happened after the fact, and like
Yeah.
I'm more than happy. And then like that's something that you can
So,
give
yeah,
to the
because
party.
I wouldn't even be upset if it was like next session or whatever, when everyone's back together. It's just Faenor showing back up at the inn
Hmm.
with like a full wagon and everything, and it's like, oh yeah, no, like I spent the time in the Brelands and in Rivendell and stuff,
Hmm.
but like he's done the things he set out to do.
Hmm.
So as long as he doesn't meet any trouble on the road home,
Hmm.
he is like his journey, his goal for this is done.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that I was able to spend the time with the different characters that I did.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, it was good. It was a good session. Like I said, a big session, and a lot happened. A lot of talking, a lot of deep thoughts, a lot of that kind of stuff that you would expect, especially from a millennia old
Mr.
elf.
Elrond.
Yeah, and even being able to break up um, some of the seriousness with like, where, oh my god, why does he talk in puns? And
Mm.
it's like, oh no, that's his father's trait. And Fane was like, thank
I hope he
my
doesn't find his
oh
dad
my
now.
god, like there
I
was the
can't
brief
handle
moment
two
where
of
I,
them.
yeah, um, but yes, and I know that with everything happening with Valnath leaving, it was a lot of the time management and stuff that happened with all of us, and yeah, it does suck a lot as well because I'm gonna miss talking to like both of them. Like they're gonna be off on another campaign, doing their own stuff, but
The nice thing
hopefully
too, though, is at least in
hopefully
this
run into
case,
each other.
they'll be off on their own adventure, but like you'll be, because I think they're still like doing like the same, like all of like the new players are going to be introduced into like the same like AME chat, and so that will be like a
Yeah,
thing, still.
yeah,
But the nice thing is you'll be able to still follow along if you like go to the YouTube, or it'll probably
yeah,
be like early in the morning for you, or maybe not early, but like during
yeah,
like school or work or whatever the time when like we're doing that one. But you can always go back
and
and rewatch
yeah.
it and like follow them on their adventures, and then when you see them again, they're just like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, and like the idea of it's like, oh, if we some big event happens and it's like we're getting everyone on for the next 2 weeks, everyone's here or something. As much as that would be hectic for you running that,
Adventures in
um,
Middle Earth, Avengers Edition.
yeah, more or less. Like the idea of being able to follow along with their adventures, or like a little thing I did is like when I was like I didn't expect to run into Valnath as I was leaving Rivendell, but I thought that when he goes to like in his session, it's like, oh yeah, I go to like I get home and there's going to just be a carved deer there.
Yep,
Like little things that won't be affecting me at all, but will be little things in the world that are still traces of us.
100%.
And the idea of if Valnath goes east again, off into the Mirkwood and everything, or
Hmm.
goes that way, and there's more guards with all the caravans, that's still a thing that I've done that's going to affect the world.
Hundred
Um,
percent, and even like in Eriador, like if like
yeah,
some things like do like a breach into Eriador, like it's like wow, this is because of like what Faenor, Jess, and Theodric have done.
yeah,
Whether it's trade networks, like that kind of stuff. Because the one thing about like the Greenway and all of that is it's not very well traveled. Eriador is like, well, Wilderland is Wilderland. There's a lot more activity in Wilderland than there is in Eriador, because
mm,
Eriador's so big, and
yeah,
most of it is just like wild, like destroyed Kingdom of Arnor, and it's just pretty much like
yeah,
the majority of it, especially in the northern part of it, is just like hobbits that just stick to themselves, the people in Bree, and
mm,
then the elves who just stay to themselves. So it's like not
yeah.
like a ton of like all kinds of stuff like you guys are setting up in Wilderland. So it's a very different area, that's for sure.
Mm. And yeah, I can't wait to see how this world is shaped with two different groups.
Yeah,
Playing. It's gonna be interesting to see it from that outside point of view.
yeah, that's true.
Because we haven't really experienced that.
Uh huh.
But yeah, that's probably all my thoughts on that.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean I loved it. I always get so excited when I can pull out of my pocket like the big characters from the works of Tolkien. Like it's always cool when it's just like, oh yeah, like Ingolmer or Igwar, I don't know, like some of those like kind of like
Mm.
minor, very minor characters, or even characters just made up for the campaign, and then it's just like
Mm.
Elrond. It's like, yeah, you're meeting the celebrity,
Yeah.
you're meeting the guy, and like the freaking just like literally in Meladris, there's like all of these like elf lords and all. It's crazy. What was
Mm.
going on? Likely, probably, during that time that you were there, if you were like in the Hall of Fire, Aragorn was also young. Aragorn was probably also there,
Mm.
like in like the
Yeah.
same time, but just like don't know,
Mm.
like he's gonna be King
Yeah.
Belisar. It's just
He's
like,
just he was just a man. That was
yeah,
one of
just
the men, one
one
of
of the
the few
people, like
men.
young men that are
Yeah.
there, and just he's just absorbing everything and like living his life and growing up. And so it's just, yeah, it's really cool to think about all of it like in the perspective of like Tolkien's world, which is I think like what I love
Yeah.
so much about just this campaign in general. Is it's just like it's so rooted in that, but it's just like all of these decisions that you're making, it's like you're fighting back against the shadow to prepare for the events of the War of the Ring. And it's so cool.
Mm.
I'm loving it so much. Pulling from history, considering things in the
Oh,
future, and
yeah.
seeing what you guys are doing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good time, and it like I don't know why, but like for me, this session felt very different, and like because the locations were very different. Like Wilderland is Wilderland, and it's like all that. Mirkwood, we had our time, even in Dale and like Esgaroth, but like this had its like own distinct feel. Like being like in Bree, it kind of brought me back a little bit to like during the Jalen's like session 0, and then also like this is the first time we've done Rivendell, and we'll be revisiting Rivendell a bit next week with Valinith.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a large world, and like even just little details like Faenor being aware of his namesake, like the main other Faenor was not the nicest guy in elven history.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, oh yeah, the high elf king, who was like one of the most powerful elves, like died fighting Sauron. Basically, it was like two elves versus Sauron, and they were like holding him back.
Yep.
And then like the fact that they were that, because they were first generation elves, weren't they? I'm pretty
Yep.
sure. So it's
Yep.
like the
Yep.
fact that they were like not on par, but they were comparable against like essentially a god or like an angel, I suppose.
Mr. Ring of
Um,
Power guy. Like, and not
yes,
just were they beating this like brutal like basically lieutenant of Morgoth, but like has
yeah.
the Ring of Power too. And it's just like that they're able to like hold him at bay for like the time that they
Because
did.
I think even in the lore they talk about that like that king like killed like a Baelor. Just like I know that Glorfindel, his death is from fighting one on one with a Baelor, and killing it. Like
Yep.
that's something that Gandalf like struggled with a lot.
If you
Like
read
literally
like
killed him
the
as
Children
well.
of Húrin and that kind of stuff, like it's crazy. Like the Gondolin elves, like the elves of the first age, like literally they just like go in there and just like fight Balrogs one on one. They're just like, hey, what's going on? I understand that you're like the biggest servant of the enemy, but it's just like I'm just
Yeah,
this tiny elf, but I can kill you, so it's all good.
yeah. So
I might die, but it's
those,
fine.
yeah, those are the figures that Feanor looks to as like I will probably never be that powerful. Like I just am not of that stock, like I didn't get to see like, like basically gods
Mhm.
and stuff. Like I wasn't around, like that pureness, the purity of those elves just doesn't exist anymore.
This should put it into perspective. So, for all of you out there, Adventures in Middle Earth, most of the adventures only take you through level 10. It's a pretty low level, just level cap campaign. Elrond, as far as his level goes, he's a level 12.
Yeah,
Glorfindel is level 15. I don't
yeah,
think there's anything higher than that. Like if you're I'm
yeah,
like looking right now at like Glorfindel's stat block. There's nothing
yeah.
higher than Glorfindel. Like he's like as of now like the strongest person in Middle Earth.
Hmm.
Bar none. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
these guys are
and
like on a different level, like insane.
yeah.
Hmm.
I might, before we start again, Feanor did want to look for better armor, and he was the last time he was looking. It was only he really only had the thought that only elfin made armor would really improve upon what he's currently wearing.
Good to know.
So
One thing to
I'll talk to you
think
about that.
about is that there is a blacksmith that is also there. Blacksmith
Yeah.
by the name of, which you would have met, so I'm okay telling you about this. The blacksmith by the name of Damron. So he is one of the last actually elven smiths from Eregion. So he exists, and he's like basically the main blacksmith of Rivendell. We can talk about that. We can think about it. If you have thoughts about certain things, I'll let you know on that. You probably can't afford to just buy a new armor piece outright, but maybe
Yeah.
improvements on like your armor could be had. But we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I don't have quite that much money.
Yeah, yeah.
Only 4 gold pieces, which is good for what we've been doing so far.
It's very
But
good. But elven made
yeah,
armor. Yeah.
yes,
And that probably would
um,
take a while to make too, but yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Cool.
but yeah, yeah,
Sweet.
and yeah, I think we're good.
That'll do it for tonight then. We're going to skip some of the announcements. If you want to see that, just head over to the Discord. We have all the stuff. Check out Dice Necky. They're our amazing sponsor. They're incredible. At checkout, say Fancy Forge sent you. You want Japanese sweets or luxury treats, go check them out. That's awesome too. Everything is linked in the Twitches, so make sure that you take a look at it and just go to whatever links are you want to take a look at. But thank you so much, Nick, for staying till this late at night. And we're going to go ahead and close it down here. May the road go ever onward and onward, and I will see you next week, each and every one of you, with Valinith. Bye, guys.